Robert Axon addressed the messiness of last night's Republican caucus meetings and told Utah's Morning News that while there were some curveballs, he believes most of the hundreds of meetings throughout the state went smoothly.
The vast majority of those, went very well and smoothly. And really, it was the check-in process in a couple of locations got overwhelmed. And like I said, we missed the mark on that. We'll have to have those lessons learned.
By and large, he says he's glad he saw such a big turnout from Utah Republicans who gave their votes overwhelmingly to former President Trump. Our top national story this hour from ABC News. Looks like a 2020 rematch this November with former South Carolina Governor Nikki Haley stepping out of the Republican race. ABC News White House correspondent Karen Travers has reaction from President Biden.
President Biden, in a statement, commends Nikki Haley, saying it takes a lot of courage to run for president, and she was, quote, willing to speak the truth about Trump. The president said there's a place for Haley's supporters in his campaign, writing, quote, I know there's a lot we won't agree on, but he says on things like preserving American democracy, treating each other with decency and respect, and preserving NATO, quote, I hope and believe we can find common ground. Mr. Biden called this, quote, no ordinary election, and says the stakes for the country couldn't be higher. Karen Travers, ABC News, the White House.
Your money at this moment, the Dow Jones average up on the day now, 196. The NASDAQ up 130 after a down day yesterday. And the sun is peeking out behind this morning's clouds. We'll have KSL weather next. KSL News Time 9:02.
You know what's great about KSL's traffic coverage? Trained traffic reporters and real listeners.
Trading information and making the commute safer and faster for everyone.
Every 10 minutes on the nines, we have you covered on KSL News Radio.
Do you hear that? If you're like many people, that's the sound of your money. Just lying there in a checking or savings account doing nothing when it could be out there earning more money for you. But at America First Credit Union, we can give your money a wake-up call.
What? What's that?
Rise and shine, Bucky. We can get your money working in a high-yield certificate account, earning you a much better return than traditional checking and savings. Up and at 'em, buddy. We gotta go.
Huh? Where are we going?
To America First. You'll love it there. They're going to help you do so much awesome stuff.
All right, I'm coming.
So get your money working with a high-yield certificate from America First. Head to americafirst.com today to check out the latest amazing rates. Subject to membership, eligibility, terms, conditions, and change. Federally insured by NCUA.
It's the question that's been on everybody's mind, and it's about to be answered. When will Gillette Heating and Air offer plumbing services?
You want to know?
Yeah! The answer is now. To celebrate, Gillette is offering a free tankless water heater when you buy a high-efficiency heating and cooling system. For a limited time while supplies last, call Gillette today for heating, AC, and now plumbing. Call 385-GET-HEAT.
Carrier, turn to the experts.
Want more speed? Well, you're in luck because Xfinity just increased their internet speeds and they're faster than ever. Plus, with super fast internet and a reliable connection, you can do more of what you love whenever you want. More gaming, more downloading, more video chatting, and more cozy nights on the couch streaming your favorite movies and TV shows. If life with more speed sounds pretty awesome, that's because it is. It's time to get more out of your internet with faster speeds from Xfinity. Get 300 megabit Xfinity internet for only $25 a month for 12 months with no annual contract and Wi-Fi equipment included. That's 50% more speed for the same great price. Go to Xfinity.com, call 1-800-XFINITY, or visit a store today. Requires paperless billing and auto pay with stored bank account. Restrictions apply. Taxes and other charges extra. After promo, regular rates apply. Actual speeds vary and not guaranteed. Want more speed? Go to Xfinity.com, call or visit a store today.
Traffic and weather together brought to you by Sinclair's DinoPay app. Save up to 20 cents per gallon. Here's Heather Kelly.
We still have a bit of delay on northbound I-15 in the downtown Salt Lake area. This starts around 2100 south up to about 900 south. That was due to an accident, which looks like it may have cleared. But again, you still have some slowing, especially in the right lanes where that accident had been. Not a whole lot of problems on the rest of your drive now across the Wasatch Front. The east and west side belt routes look good, and no problems over Parley's Canyon. Choose a gorgeous new countertop for your kitchen or bath at the Bedrock Quartz Stone Sale, starting at just $39 a foot. Visit bedrockquartz.com. That's bedrockquartz.com. Heather Kelly in the KSL Traffic Center.
And our KSL weather, we'll see partly cloudy skies, relatively warm temperatures, an expected high of 50 degrees. The sun also peeking out from behind the clouds, so we'll have partly sunny skies for the day, then a slight chance of rain will roll around after midnight. And right now, we're at 43 degrees. It's partly cloudy. I'm Dan Bomas from the KSL Common Spirit Health Studios. Listen online at kslnewsradio.com. We're Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
Dave and Dujanovic, your morning companions for talk, analysis, and key perspectives on Utah's biggest stories on KSL News Radio.
Full transparency, I am not going to sit here on the microphone for this news organization and sugarcoat anything that went down last night that Republican voters experienced in several locations across Utah. Not all locations, but several locations. Precincts were reported to us by voters who are trying to participate in the in-person caucus meetings that were organized by the GOP here in Utah, who were either turned away, couldn't get Wi-Fi, had technical issues, had volunteers sitting there who, quite frankly, you had to feel bad for them because they didn't know what to do or how to do, what to do with what when the ballots start getting counted. There were widespread problems. I'm not going to be the voice of the sugarcoat team today.
Well, I'm not sure I'm going to be that guy either. I was there. I went there last night. It was the first time. And everything you explained and you had problems with or that you've heard, I experienced them on some level, or I knew someone that experienced them. So it was messy. It's 9:07. It's time for the launch.
Sequence engaged.
And here are 3 things Debbie wants you to know.
Countdown. 3.
Hey, look, we're going to have the GOP chair on the line in the 11 o'clock hour. We're going to ask him some very specific questions. One thing I want to know is when will the audit happen? Let's have a full audit. We need transparency on behalf of the Republican voters who showed up to their caucus meetings last night and ran into a wall of problems. Complaint after complaint. We got them here at Broadcast House at KSL. Things like, this is a disaster. Lines are so long. Wi-Fi's not working. I can't pre-register like I've been told to do by the party. The website isn't working. Volunteers are confused. We don't even know if our votes got counted. It all boiled over when the chair of the party was confronted by a group of voters, his own Republicans.
We'll want to scan that. It doesn't work. It's not working. Okay, so it's a capacity issue with the Why do we need a phone to vote?
Well, sure enough, Utah's Morning News, of course, had GOP Chair Robert Axon on the line with them. He'll join us again in the 11 o'clock hour. Here's what part of his response to the complaints among his fellow Republicans.
The vast majority of those, went very well and smoothly. And really, it was the check-in process in a couple of locations got overwhelmed. And like I said, we missed the mark on that. We'll have to have those lessons learned.
I think, and we talked to Robert Axon several times leading up to this, and I think when he was explaining it, it sounded like a good plan to me. But it was messy execution. It's like the coach that has a very, very good game plan, but the players can't deliver on the game plan. And I think there were too many errors, too many mistakes, too many hiccups for us to call this a success.
Countdown. 2.
Hey, look, we also heard from people who said they had a great experience. Things went smoothly at their location. The volunteers knew exactly what to do. It was a great experience to come together with their neighbors and discuss issues. So I'm not going to discount that there's some value in this. I'm just saying, look, you can have a plan, but if you don't execute it well, that's a huge problem.
One of my favorite moments of the night was when I saw, it was only a couple, but when I saw an 18-year-old out there at caucus night.
I was really excited to be able to vote because it's my only chance to actually let my voice be heard and
So it was fun to see that, experience it. I also took my 18-year-old son. He said, That was kind of messy. I think you're right, buddy.
So it's not just Debbie Downer over here.
It was a little messy.
Launch countdown 1.
Well, Donald Trump took Utah. He also had a clean sweep on Super Tuesday across the nation. And Nikki Haley, it's ended her bid for president.
I am filled with the gratitude for the outpouring of support we've received from all across our great country. But the time has now come to suspend my campaign.
It was a valiant effort, but Nikki Haley was never really in it. I think we pretended for a long time that she was, but Donald Trump has dominated this primary. He took Ron DeSantis out when he was supposed to be the heir apparent. He battled heavyweights like Mike Pence, who was the vice president. Newcomers like Vivek Ramaswamy was booted. He just won on every level, and Nikki Haley was the last hurdle that Donald Trump had to clear, and he did it easily.
Dave and Dujanovic.
The launch.
Commence.
Dave and Dujanovic. Special coverage of the top national story.
Some pushback, Dave. I think Nikki Haley was in it every step of the way. I think it was the majority of Republican voters showed they just weren't into her. She has been running against the former president since February of last year. Oh, and it sure feels like it. Less than an hour ago, and you heard it here live right here on KSL News Radio, she ended her campaign, and she did so in under 4 minutes. She was succinct in front of a podium in her home state of South Carolina.
In this campaign, I have seen our country's greatness. From the bottom of my heart, thank you, America. God bless you.
You can say there are no moral victories, but I think Haley should absolutely take a moral victory lap with this campaign. And this doesn't close the door for her on a future presidential run. She's certainly young enough. John McCain, you'll remember, he ran in 2000. He didn't get the nomination, but he did 8 years later. Hillary Clinton, same thing, lost to Barack Obama, got the nomination 8 years later. So I don't think this door is closed for Haley at all.
During that speech where she announced she's suspending her campaign, it was about 3 minutes and 45 seconds long. Yep. I mean, but who's counting?
Who's counting?
She did spend quite a bit of time talking about Donald Trump.
In all likelihood, Donald Trump will be the Republican nominee when our party convention meets in July. I congratulate him and wish him well. I wish anyone well who would be America's president. Our country is too precious to let our differences divide us. I have always been a conservative Republican and always supported the Republican nominee. But on this question, as she did on so many others, Margaret Thatcher provided some good advice when she said, quote, "Never just follow the crowd. Always make up your own mind." It is now up to Donald Trump to earn the votes of those in our party and beyond it who did not support him. And I hope he does that. At its best, politics is about bringing people into your cause, not turning them away. And our conservative cause badly needs more people. This is now his time for choosing.
His time for choosing. And can he win over her voters? I mean, it was 40% here in Utah, maybe 42% of Republicans chose Nikki Haley over Donald Trump. In my precinct, it was 47 to 31. It was a sound victory. Again, this is just my little neighborhood, but Donald Trump did not immediately get Nikki Haley's endorsement. She didn't say, "All right, now it's time to rally the troops and get everyone behind the nominee." She said, "You're going to have to earn it."
But speaking of your little neighborhood and your caucus meeting last night, that in-person caucus meeting, there were some serious problems reported here to KSL from Republican voters who tried to participate in their party's process last night. And I'm not going to sugarcoat any of this. We're going to get into the details, the nitty-gritty of the complaints that we got here at Broadcast House that started pouring in shortly after the caucus meeting started. Technical issues with pre-registering for the meetings, Wi-Fi problems at locations, confusion among volunteers on how to tally ballots. You know, I have covered elections in Utah as a journalist since 1990, I have never seen anything like this. We're going to read these complaints to you next.
Dave and Dujanovic.
You know KSL is the only news radio for your car, right?
The only news radio for your smart speaker.
Come here in the morning. It's the latest news and traffic. In the afternoon, news and updated weather.
We have you covered at KSL News Radio.
Hi, I'm Henry Winkler. My eyes are very important to me. My eyes connect me with everything I love. I loved my late father-in-law dearly. He always lit up a room, but his vision dimmed with age. He had age-related macular degeneration, or AMD. And since partnering with Apellis, I've learned there's an advanced form of dry AMD called geographic atrophy, or GA. His struggle with vision loss made me want to help others know about GA's warning signs. For some, colors appear dull or washed out. For others, hazy or blurred vision make it hard to see details, like fine print on price tags. Many have trouble seeing in the dark, making driving at night difficult. GA gets worse over time and cannot be reversed. If you think you have GA, don't wait. Treatments are available. Ask a retina specialist about FDA-approved treatments for GA and go to GAWon'tWait.com.
The Cougars are fighting for their best chance in the Big Dance.
BYU's displayed its resiliency throughout this campaign.
The Big 12 tournament is days away, and then it's the NCAA tournament. Tonight, it's BYU, Iowa State. Pregame is at 6 and tip-off at 7 on Utah's legacy home for the Cougars. KSL News Radio.
Some things are better together, like burgers and fries, movies and popcorn, and auto and home insurance. At Farm Bureau Financial Services, we'll help you bundle your auto and home coverage in one policy, saving you money. And if a storm hits and both are damaged, you'll pay a single deductible. Find an agent at fbfs.com/protect. It's your future. Let's protect it. Farm Bureau Property and Casualty Insurance Company, Western Agricultural Insurance Company.
Are you looking to get a COVID-19 booster to stay healthy this cold and flu season? If you join the Beehive study, you'll have the chance to receive up to $550 for getting a booster and completing weekly COVID tests and brief surveys about your health. Don't want to get a COVID-19 booster? That's okay too. You can still join the Beehive study and receive up to $550 for completing the weekly COVID tests and surveys. Help advance research at the University of Utah while taking care of yourself this season. Call 801-203-0320 or email beehivestudy@utah.edu to learn more. You can also visit the study website at beehivestudy.com.
Right now might just be the perfect time to upgrade your living space to one that has, well, a little more space. You've earned the equity in your home. It's now time to put it to good use. Whether it's opening up a cramped or dated floor plan, adding a little more luxury to your bath, or finally building the kitchen of your dreams, Golden West Credit Union has a home equity line of credit for a low introductory rate of 5.49% APR fixed for 6 months. With a Golden West Home Equity Credit Line, you'll save money with no fees or closing costs. And Golden West makes accessing the equity in your home easy with a Visa Platinum Card. Start making the most of your equity today and make your plans a reality. Apply at any branch, online at gwcu.org, or on our mobile app. Equal Housing Lender, NMLS number 440574.
We'll take care of you.
When the weather warms up, it's like a stampede, except instead of dust stirred up by hundreds of hooves, it's a cascade of phone calls to Advanced Window Products. This is Jeff Kaplan. Soon as the sun shines and the snow's gone, people want new windows and frames from Utah's #1 custom window maker, and the wait for installation grows longer. But right now, you can get near the front of the line by calling for a quote and get $2,500 off when you purchase 10 windows or more. That's on top of the incredible savings for the highest quality double-pane windows and frames, any style, any color. See, at Advanced Window Products, they actually build the windows here in Utah, they install the windows, and they guarantee them for life. There's no middleman, and they can pass the savings on to you. They even offer buy now, pay later. So get in before the wait grows longer and get the $2,500 off. Get your new windows this spring. Make the call. Advanced Window Products, 801-850-9100. That's 801-850-9100. Or visit AdvancedWindowsUSA.com.
With the 3 things you need to know this hour, I'm Dan Bomas. First, we have reports from various Republican caucus locations last night with people saying there were long lines and computer glitches, and even some voters leaving because of the problems. Second, the Sugar House section of 2100 South will be under construction starting tomorrow. The year-and-a-half-long project should make the area more pedestrian-friendly. Third, the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints has now acquired the historic Kirtland Temple in Ohio, previously owned by the Community of Christ. Right now, 43 degrees in Salt Lake City. And back to Dave and Dujanovic on KSL News Radio.
Dave and Dujanovic.
There are just so many complaints that poured into KSL last night about the in-person caucus meetings in Republican voters' neighborhoods that they went to. They waited in long lines, and that turns out not to even be the worst of the complaints. Let me just tick through some of these complaints I'm holding here, Dave, in my left hand. There's pages and pages of them. From people who emailed KSL. The Republican caucus meeting at Kearns High School is having real trouble getting off the ground due to problems with the Utah GOP's website.
I experienced that as well. Debbie, I was there, and I saw people standing in line. There were clear Republicans registered as Republicans, and as they were trying to pre-register, it would come out, you're not eligible, despite the fact they were on the rolls as registered Republicans.
Dave and I taking a very in-depth look for a good chunk of the show today at the chaos that was unfolding at several caucus meeting locations, the in-person meetings that the GOP in Utah called for Republicans to show up and take their presidential preference poll in person. And in some locations, things went smoothly. And in others, it was complete chaos. Another complaint. My brother's at Copper Hills High School. There's a huge wait to check in for caucus, and the system crashed. Another one, absolute chaos at Alta High School for District 42 caucus as people are unable to register due to the system crashing. Hours-long lines and tempers flaring. Here's one. That isn't even the worst of it, because this is the one that actually concerns me the most. From somebody who said she went to her Republican caucus. It was a total disaster, and that multiple volunteers who were manning the process expressed doubt as to whether most votes would be counted because there was so much confusion.
It was a completely different experience than I've had in the past when I vote. And I vote all the time. The ballot, it's run by the clerk, the county clerk. So this was so loose and so messy, comparatively speaking. And I think that was in part what was so unsettling is we were literally handed out ballots. We had to fill it in. It was almost like someone had cut it out with scissors, these ballots. It was on just regular paper. It wasn't like high quality. So it felt a little bit like high school and everyone's just kind of voting for their friends. It just was very informal. And I think we're giving a lot of grace to the entire process because it was run by volunteers. You know, if this was run professionally through the county clerk, people would be having heart attacks. But I think a lot of grace is being given because it was run by volunteers. That's a problem.
My non-sugarcoat self says, this is not how elections are run. This isn't how things go. And in the past, it's been the Republican Party that's called out other elections for lack of transparency, confusion, whether votes got counted or not. We'll get into that in more detail in just a moment. There's a confrontation that happened last night at one location between Republican voters who went after their very own GOP chair for what was going on at that location. Confusion and chaos.
We'll want to scan that. It doesn't work. It's not working. Okay, so it's a capacity issue with the Why do we need a phone to vote?
And I experienced that very thing where I pre-registered, smooth sailing for me. I saw other people that hadn't pre-registered that were running into that exact same problem. They were like, why do I have to log into my phone? My name is on your rolls.
Which was a requirement to pre-register. That was my understanding. You had to pre-register in order to participate. Don Can with House District 42, you're the chair. So you're at about, 13th East to the Bangerter location there? And were you at Bingham High School last night? Because I didn't live far from there, and I thought about jumping in the car and going over and seeing the chaos firsthand. So walk us through what happened there.
Thanks for having me on today. I enjoy your show. This is Don Can. I'm actually House District Chairman of District 45.
Okay.
And it reaches from 13th East all the way out to Bangerter Highway.
Wow.
And I have 31 precinct chairs underneath me, many of whom, in fact, most of whom are senior citizens. And they struggle with technology to begin with. And I thought that I had met with them repeatedly and gave them detailed instructions from start to finish, exactly how to run the caucus. But what we didn't count on, number one, was we had a massive amount of people show up. I mean, more than we've had in the past. And, they all show up at the same time. We started credentialing people as they came in at 5:30 for our precinct chairs. And we didn't get the caucus started till 7:45, 45 minutes late. And the reason for that is we had massive failures of the Republican server that kept crashing. And people would come up, as you said, everything you said so far is true. We had not eligible come up. We had failures of people who, people that just showed up and wanted to vote that didn't necessarily have a phone. And as somebody said, you shouldn't have to have a phone to vote. And I agree with you that 100%. But a lot of people have technology issues, even in this day and age, older people. And the Republican Party, as you know, is chock full of senior citizens. We had our share of young people as well. But I got to tell you that the volunteers at Bingham High School, the student government volunteers were outstanding.
That's great.
They jumped in despite crowds pressing on them. They did everything they could. They were cheerful, helpful. They did everything they could. And I can't say enough about the kids at Bingham High.
I love that.
Helped us.
I love that as a silver lining in all of this. But look, I mean, the other issue is that you can have a plan if you're the GOP, if you're the party, but if it's not being able to be executed, and we don't expect perfection, but this is an election, and we would expect things like, sites not to crash and Wi-Fi not to run out of bandwidth, and volunteers
and
that
Debbie,
get cornered and not know what to do with certain things because things came up.
I agree with you 100%, Debbie. I expect perfection in an election. I expect perfection. I work tireless hours. I'm a volunteer. I had a guy get in my face and threaten to sue me last night. I said, hey, we're all Republicans here. I'm a volunteer. I don't do this for a living. I've done a lot of work on this thing to get it to run smoothly. But who dropped the ball was Rob Axton. He dropped the ball with this entire plan was bad. This whole thing should have been handled on paper. Paper ballots is the way to go. It was just kind of Mickey Mouse the way that you're requiring people not only to register to vote, but then pre-register after you've registered, and then credential after that to get your wristband to go into the caucus. So there are 3 steps, and it's thoroughly confusing. People didn't know. We had big signs up that said, register here. All they had to do was scan it with their cell phone. Well, what happens when you have somebody that doesn't have a cell phone? That's a bad plan in my opinion.
That's a very important part right there, Don, as you were describing it. There were 3 distinct steps. You had to register. Obviously, you had to be registered as a Republican, I think, as of January, early January. And then you had that pre-registration process where you would go online, you would log in, and then you'd get a QR code. You had to show that QR code to the volunteers at your precinct to be able to get a wristband once you checked in.
Yeah, they're running this like they run the Republican county and state conventions, which should not have been that complicated. This needs to be a lot easier for the general public. You go to a convention, people are more savvy. They know what they're doing. They can get credentialed. But the general public just wants to come in and vote.
Yeah.
That's all they want to do. Now, I do disagree that votes were not counted because everybody that tried to vote, we are still inputting information on absentee ballots that were collected, that we allowed them to vote. People that filling out. Now, the absentee ballots were all counted last night. and I have to actually shred the driver's licenses that were required. I have to take that and put it through my shredder.
Hold on, you kept the driver's licenses? Because my understanding was those were supposed to be given directly back to the voters.
No, they actually, we collected those, and they have to be shredded. So everything, not the driver's license, the photocopy of the driver's license.
Yeah, we understand that, Don.
Yeah,
well, that's
I'm
another wrinkle.
I'm shredding those. The other thing, the other issue is that we are actually registered a lot of people to vote last night, and we're still inputting their data.
Well,
because we couldn't.
Hopefully future elections, when the Republican Party is involved, go much more smoothly than what happened last night. Don, thank you so much for your transparency. Don Ken on the line with us. He was in charge of the Bingham High School caucus, in-person caucus meeting last night, spelling out what went wrong there. Let's go in-depth next on the issues that we heard about and Dave and our producer, Caitlin Johnston, experienced when it came to tallying the votes at their locations. Next.
It's 9:31 at KSL News Radio. I'm Dan Bomas. KSL's top local story this hour. The Community of Christ has sold the Kirtland Temple in Ohio and other historic sites to the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. The total price tab on that, $192 million. Former Kirtland missionary Lauren Matthias shared her reaction.
I felt very, very emotional, and the memories came flooding back. And I find today very historical and very humbling.
Matthias says she's also sad to see the temple leave the custody of the Community of Christ after all they've done to care for the site over the years. Our top national story this hour from ABC News. The United States signaling further optimism this week that a ceasefire deal can be worked out between Israel and Hamas. The talks are ongoing, but Hamas and Israel seem to disagree on just how long that ceasefire should be. ABC's Tom Sufi-Burridge also says the United States is urging Israel to get more aid through to civilians who need it.
With time running out to strike a deal, the U.S. calling on Israel to ensure food can reach those most in need. The US and Jordan airdropping more aid, this time 36,000 meals into northern Gaza, where the UN says hundreds of thousands of people are on the brink of famine.
The World Food Program said that a 14-truck aid convoy was stopped by Israeli forces at a crossing in northern Gaza. Your money at this moment, the Dow Jones average, looking like it's recovering some of the ground it lost yesterday. Up on the day, 246 points. The NASDAQ is up 111 points. And just ahead, looks like we'll see a little sunshine today. That's next. KSL News Time, 9:33.
We hope you have the right app on your phone for news. You probably have dozens.
But the KSL News Radio app, well, it makes our live stream super easy.
Plus, our talk shows are right there as podcast for your workday.
That's the app for KSL News Radio.
Have you ever thought, you know what, I want to add some more lighting to this house or throw in a ceiling fan? I'm going to fix that smoke detector once and for all, but you're not an electrician. You don't want to mess with it. We got someone for you.
Don't do it. You got to call Master Electrical. This is not a job you need to DIY because Master Electrical, they're the experts. They'll come in. They'll give you their upfront price. They'll give you their upfront pricing guarantee. They'll do the job right. And the price they quote you up front is the price you're going to pay when the job is done.
Because I think we've all been bitten by this one time or the other, where we ask someone to come out, they give us one of those hourly bids. They say, oh, this is going to take me half a day. And then, a week and a half later, they're still there. Well, that bid just blows up. You're not going to get, that original bid because they just underestimated the job. Well, you don't get that with Master Electrical. Your bid is your price.
That's a great point. Master Electrical proudly serves from Logan to Santa Quin. And the great thing for all of us is they're always open, including for emergency services.
801-543-2222. That's 801-543-2222.
Or check them out online at masterelectrical.com.
A happy place comes in many colors. Whatever your color, bring happiness home with CertaPro Painters and make your happy place your home. CertaPro Painters, that's painting happy. During our spring sales event, special offers are available through April 30th. Schedule your home painting project today and bring happiness home. Each CertaPro painter's business is independently owned and operated. Contractor license and registration information is available at CertaPro.com.
It already feels like home.
Held over due to popular demand. This is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to save 40 to 80% on a hot tub and swim spa. This weekend only, Friday through Sunday, Utah State Fair Park. Be advised, this is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to save 40 to 80% on a hot tub and swim spa. This weekend only, Friday through Sunday, Utah State Fair Park. 18-month interest-free financing. Our factories have demanded we sell 1,000 hot tubs and swim spas this weekend. Utah State Fair Park. Huge factory incentives, factory rebates, this weekend only. Utah State Fair Park. We can remove your old hot tub. Free delivery of your new hot tub. Hot tub starting at $2,999. Utah State Fair Park. Free delivery of your new hot tub. Just relax and enjoy. Utah State Fair Park. Friday, noon to 8 p.m. Saturday, 10 a.m. to 8 p.m. Sunday, 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. Free admission, free parking, free delivery. Utah State Fair Park. Call 833-SPA-SALE or visit hottubandSwimSpaSale.com.
Traffic and weather together brought to you by Sinclair's Dino Pay app. Save up to 20 cents per gallon. Here's Heather Kelly.
Well, we've got a crash on the 201 freeway. This is eastbound. You're going to start seeing those delays just after the on-ramp from Bangerter Highway all the way over to Redwood Road, where the right lane and shoulder are blocking that exit ramp to Redwood Road. But it's also causing backups for people trying to merge from I-215's west belt to go east on the 201 because they're all having to merge over to the left much sooner than they would like. Everybody else, though, is at freeway speeds right now across the Wasatch Front. Is it winter? Is it spring? Who cares? Come explore Logan. Catch the Cache Valley Cowboy Rendezvous March 14th through the 17th with big-name Western music, cowboy poetry, and dances. ExploreLogan.com. Heather Kelly in the KSL Traffic Center.
And a KSL weather, a high in the 50s today, but it drops back to the 40s tomorrow and Friday. There's a chance of rain tomorrow, then it dries out for the weekend. 45 degrees and mostly cloudy right now. I'm Dan Bomas from the KSL Common Spirit Health Studios. Listen online at kslnewsradio.com. We're Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
Dave and Dujanovic, your morning companions for talk, analysis, and key perspectives on Utah's biggest stories on KSL News Radio.
Now, the chair of the House District 45, Don Can, was just on the line. He was over Bingham High School out there on the west side last night, where there was reports of lots and lots of problems. He did not mince words with the problems that they had out there last night. A lot of precincts experiencing problems with the Republican GOP in-person voting. That happened last night. There were Wi-Fi problems. People couldn't pre-register. There were concerns over tallying the votes, too, in other areas of town. Don said he didn't have concerns with that particular issue at his location, but here's what else he told us.
I expect perfection in an election. I expect perfection. I work tireless hours. I'm a volunteer. I had a guy get in my face and threaten to sue me last night. I said, hey, we're all Republicans here. I'm a volunteer. I don't do this for a living. I've done a lot of work on this thing to get it to run smoothly, but who dropped the ball was Rob Axton. He dropped the ball with this entire plan was bad.
And he's calling out the chair of the Republican Party, Robert Axson. We will have him live on the line at 11 o'clock to answer to some of these questions.
And we're talking about tens of thousands of people that showed up to vote. The Republican Party just released some numbers. They've got 80% of precincts reporting. Again, we're still only at 80% right now the next day. But you've got Trump winning by about 40,000 votes to Nikki Haley's 28,000 votes. But it was a shocking amount of people that were showing up. At Davis High School, where I went, the parking lot was full. Davis High School is one of the largest high schools in the entire state, and that place was packed.
And a shocking number of complaints started to roll into KSL News Radio right after things launched last night. I've covered elections in this state since 1990, 30 years. I have never seen anything this crazy in some locations. And this should not happen. this cannot ever happen again, what happened in some of the areas. We had reports of Wi-Fi problems. People were unable to pre-register, people being turned away who felt like they had every right to vote because they're a registered Republican. Crashing with the website, with the GOP website that happened. And then there's this issue of tallying the votes. And this was, of all the concerns, this is the one that is in the top of the pile for me. Every vote deserves to be tallied appropriately and counted appropriately, no matter what election you're involved in. And this person wrote to KSL, said multiple volunteers at this location expressed doubt as to whether most votes would be counted, citing ongoing confusion among the volunteers of how things should work. What was your experience, Dave? And I also want to mention to our listeners, we have our producer, Caitlin Johnston, who participated last night, and she's going to talk about her experience with wristbands and check marks and plastic bags.
There were a couple of different kinds there were several different ways that we voted last night. Number one, you had the presidential preference poll, and they basically printed out and cut a small piece of paper, and it had 3 names on it. It had Trump, Haley, and I think it was Binkley. Ryan
was
Binkley.
out by then, yeah.
But he was still on the ballot.
Okay.
And they said, don't put his name on. He's dropped out. If you do, it will be spoiled. Those were the instructions I was given. Debbie, I'm looking at the latest returns, and it shows that Ryan Binkley has 742 votes.
So they weren't spoiled.
So they weren't spoiled. So that, first of all, let me just say there was confusion there. Okay? So that's a problem. Was it spoiled, or did they count it? And that's a great question. Number 2, that was one element, and that was a very clear fill in the box, and we put it in a Tupperware container.
What?
It was basically just, we are all sitting in a classroom at Davis High School, and the chair and the co-chair, they were gathering up. And when we first checked in, we had a red wristband. And we just, like you'd get at an amusement park. You were just wearing this red paper wristband. And what they would do is, when you filled out your ballot and you put it in the Tupperware container, they would mark on your wristband that you had voted. That's how they kept track of it. With a
pen?
With a pen on your wristband.
Caitlin, did somebody there volunteer at your location? You were at a different location than Dave.
Farmington.
Did somebody there, one of the volunteers, mark on your wristband with a pen?
I marked my own.
What?
Because
Well,
they
say
had
that again.
forgotten. I marked my own, and the girl next to me helped because I was on my right hand and I couldn't do it with my left. But it's because I put my little ballot piece of paper in the plastic bag. I didn't have the Tupperware.
You didn't have a Tupperware?
No.
Was it like a Ziploc
It was
bag?
not a Ziploc bag. It was like she said it was a very secure, locked down bag. They were going to close once they got all the votes. But I don't even know if it got closed because they counted them right at the end, when at 8 o'clock or whatever is when they ended it. But I was one of the very first ones to put it in, because they said once you've got that filled out, you go walk over here, put it in the bag. And there were probably 3 to 5 of us that did that. And then as more people got in, they were like, oh, we need to make sure we have a check mark on your wristbands so you can't vote again. And so I was just like, honor system, because I was like, I don't know how I feel about this, but I just did it. But then afterwards, I assumed that they marked everybody after that. But I'm like, I'm not sure about this process.
But you had put your ballot in the plastic bag.
Already.
You'd walked away,
Yep.
and then they make an announcement that,
Yes.
to prove you voted once, you need to mark your wristband, and you provide your own pen?
That I did my own pen. I don't know if I think they.
We handed out pens in my classroom.
I was prepared, so I had a pen. But anybody, So it was.
Oh my goodness!
My group was smaller. I think there was probably 30 people in mine, so that maybe it's a little different. But I was looking at the girl I kind of made friends with. I was like, I'm
does
not
it get
sure
any
about
less
this.
secure than this, you guys?
We had over 70 people in mine.
Yeah, yours seemed bigger. My little classroom. There were a lot of people at Farmington High School, but the classroom I was in was small. So
listen. The volunteers were doing the best they could.
Yes.
I have no hard feelings toward
you.
Yes.
But they are not professionals.
Mm-hmm.
And again, it was kind of overwhelming. And this would have been very easy. The presidential preference poll, it's very easy to count up. Wait till I tell you how we did the delegates.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, ranked choice voting. I couldn't believe it. We did ranked choice voting.
Were you worried
the
that
most complicated way of voting?
Were you worried they wouldn't get it straight?
Debbie, because there's 12 different ways you can use ranked choice voting. How you want to tally it up? Oh, the first vote gets the first placement gets 4 points, and the second place gets 3 points, or whoever gets 50% drops off the bottom vote. I mean, ranked choice voting is a mess. There's a million different ways to do it. So I filled it out. I'm like, however you guys want to do it.
Oh.
That is probably not the best reaction.
Well.
And they said, hey, come up and watch us. We'll tally it. It was fully transparent that way. But there were several of us that are like, how are they going to tally that on ranked choice?
Here's what's on the agenda for the rest of our morning. We're going to have the Lieutenant Governor, Deidre Henderson, on the line. Now, her office was not involved in how the GOP did things, how they ran things last night, but we still have a lot of questions because she runs elections for the state, like when it involves like the county clerks. So we've got a lot of questions for her. We're also going to have Robert Axson, who is the chair of the Utah GOP, on the line to start answering questions that we have. And one question I certainly have for him in the 11 o'clock hour is, when is the audit? You got to have an audit, right? You got to have an audit because every single Republican voter who showed up last night to a precinct that they didn't feel like their vote was counted, there was mass confusion, they couldn't get registered to vote and be involved in this process, who got turned away, deserves an answer. They deserve an answer, and they deserve for this to never, ever, ever happen again, ever. So that's one of the questions that we're going to be asking him, and we're going to be taking your live phone calls in the 10 o'clock hour. So stay tuned. We're getting lots of texts at 57500, plenty of complaints. We're also going to be taking your live phone calls. Straight ahead, here's another text that I got last night from a precinct captain. I guess that's what they're called, precinct captains. Let me read it to you. This has been a total disaster. It's a total disaster. He's calling next.
Dave and Dujanovic.
Dave and Debbie go out of their way to make sure you hear all sides of a story.
They're working the phones to get several viewpoints on for you.
Hi, it's Tim and Amanda. We get you the full story, too.
We have you covered on KSL News Radio.
Dave and Dujanovic, your morning companions for talk, analysis, and key perspectives on Utah's biggest stories.
Hey, folks, let me tell you, I have been trying to lose a little weight. I got a program. I got somebody that's helping me out. It's Salt Lake City Fat Loss. The website is slcfatloss.com. And they told me early on, they said, we have the secret to lose up to a pound of fat every single day. Now, most clients lose 20 to 30 pounds in a month or two. I've lost over 30 pounds. I'm getting closer to 40 pounds, and I'm only in my 5th week. So I've still got 3 weeks to go. It has been incredible. I can't believe the results I'm seeing. I feel great. It's been effective. I'm motivated. That's kind of the big shocker, is this program has kept me motivated. It hasn't worn me down. And I think I've made some lifestyle changes, not just this 2-month diet or whatever, however long I go along with this, but I have energy. I don't feel sluggish. No surgery, no injections, no point counting. No exercising, no prepackaged meals. So don't think you're going to be on the treadmill 19 hours a day to get these results. Learn more. Go to Salt Lake City Fat Loss. You can Google that, or the website is very simple, slcfatloss.com, and you can schedule a consultation. slcfatloss.com.
At KSL News Radio, we have a 30-year legacy of honoring Utah teachers, but we can't do it without your help. Please tell us about an important teacher in your life on the KSL Teacher Tribute Wall, presented by Cypress Credit Union. Each month, one lucky teacher wins a $500 gift card from Cypress Credit Union, a $250 gift card to Harmon's, plus season tickets to Hale Center Theater. Say thanks to your teacher today at kslnewsradio.com/teacher from Cypress Credit Union and KSL News Radio.
It's complicated. These days, that's how people even describe their relationship status. When it comes to the latest complexities in your car, it's gotten really complicated. The experts at AMCO undergo the most rigorous training to stay on top of the latest car technologies, so there's nothing we can't fix. Well, except for that complicated relationship. When it comes to that, you're on your own. AA, MCO. Check engine light on? We'll check it for free.
Hi friends, Dan the Laptop Man here from PC Laptops. I get a lot of emails with feedback from customers. Here's one. Dear Dan, I just had the best experience ever. I bought a computer from Shane at your State Street store. I asked several what I thought were really stupid questions. Shane was super courteous and made me feel comfortable through the whole process. People need to understand how important it is to support a local company, especially when your experience is so good. PC Laptops really does love me. Signed, Satisfied. I love hearing feedback like that. It really just gives me the chills. It's the whole reason why I got into the computer business in the first place. You can get a brand new PC Laptops desktop, and they start at only $29 a month. And it comes with a lifetime warranty. That means if anything goes wrong, we're going to take care of you. Just check us out at PCLaptops.com. That's PCLaptops.com. At PC Laptops, we really do love you.
For the ones who work hard to ensure their crew can always go the extra mile, and the ones who get in early so everyone can go home on time, there's Grainger, offering professional-grade supplies backed by product experts so you can quickly and easily find what you need. Plus, you can count on access to a committed team ready to go the extra mile for you. Call, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
If you only have a 401k, you're not getting the most for retirement.
Wait, what?
Add a Robinhood IRA on top, then they'll boost it by 3%.
You can do that?
And if you transfer in any retirement account, you get 3% on top of that.
Is there a limit to the match?
No limit. Robinhood Gold gets you the biggest contribution match of any IRA on the market. Sign up for Robinhood Gold at Robinhood.com/boost by April 30th. Subscription fees apply.
Investing involves risk. 3% match requires gold for 1 year from first match. Must keep IRA for 5 years. Match on transfers subject to additional terms and conditions. Robinhood Financial LLC, member SIPC.
Ah, the life of a small business owner. Keeping the lights on, calling all the shots. And then there's workplace accidents. 500-degree ovens, rusty nails. Danger lurks around every corner. Workplace accidents can happen, but there is an easy way to keep your employees covered. Talk to your agent about workers' comp coverage from Pi, or go to piinsurance.com and get a quote. Safety first, then Pi Insurance. Individual rates, offerings, and savings may vary, subject to policy terms and conditions. Not available in all states and situations.
Dave and Dujanovic.
So many problems reported to KSL about what happened at the GOP caucus night, in-person caucuses last night, that we've already gone over a huge list of complaints from voters. We're going to hear more in the 10 o'clock hour when we take your live phone calls about what your experience was. 801-575-TALK, so get ready to call in now. But the chair of the GOP party for Utah was on the line with Utah's Morning News this morning. He's going to join us in the 11 o'clock hour because we have a lot of questions for him. But here's what he told Tim Hughes this morning when he called about the problems.
Went very well and smoothly. And really it was the check-in process in a couple of locations got overwhelmed. And like I said, we missed the mark on that. We'll have to have those lessons learned. But by and large, we were blessed with the turnout of a lot of Utahns that cared, and that's what created the challenges. I'll take that any day.
Again, the process was clunky. You had to register as a Republican back in January. So if you missed that deadline, tough. Once you registered, say you were a Republican, you registered everything fine, then you had to go through a pre-registration process where you went on to the website. I did it earlier in the day, so I had no problems.
You had to have a cell phone to use it.
You had to have a cell phone, or you could have done it through your computer. You could have gone to the website. That's how I did it. But that was easy. But I noticed several people, when they went and they were trying to use their phone, it was coming up not eligible, that they were not eligible, despite the fact that they were registered Republicans, they had their ID, but they didn't have the QR code from the pre-registration, so that was problematic because you had to check in on top of that.
Taylor Morgan, host of KSL at Night, you were also chair over one of the precincts. I don't know what you're called, a captain. Give us the truth, Taylor. Give us the truth.
Yeah. Well, first, Dave and Debbie, great to be with you. I think first and foremost, I think we need to address this claim that the technical difficulties experienced statewide last night at caucus meetings was due to high turnout, and that is simply not true. As of today, as of right now, there are just about 75,000 Republicans have reported having attended caucus out of 870,000 active registered Republicans. Right now, the Republican Party is reporting less than 10% turnout, actually about 8% turnout of Republicans at caucus meeting last night. The turnout was abysmal. This was a very, very low turnout number. By comparison, in 2020, when there was a state-administered primary election for the Republican presidential primary, 345,000 Republicans voted in that election
So there's
in 2020.
no comparison at all. What happened last night to what happened in 2020 in terms of turnout. Last night, you're saying right now it's probably going to be about 8, maybe 10%.
Yeah.
So that's not high turnout. That's not high turnout.
Even for a caucus, Debbie, that is very, very low, very poor turnout. And so to blame the difficulties in checking in and in the process on unexpectedly high turnout, that's simply not true.
Good to know.
Yeah.
Well, that starts to sound like spin then to me.
Yeah, absolutely spin. So at our caucus in Draper, held at Corner Canyon High School, our precinct went well. We had myself, other experienced precinct officers were there. We were there very early to get checked in. We had all pre-registered. We knew the drill. We had about 30 total voters attend our precinct. We had half of those who attended our caucus had tried to check in and get registered, and because the website had crashed, they were told they were not eligible to participate, to cast a ballot. Even though these were longtime registered Republicans, they were told by the front desk that they were not eligible. So we had to have someone from our precinct at the front desk looking out for our neighbors, people we knew from our neighborhood. We were then able to confirm using the state voter registration database that they were registered.
I think we lost Taylor.
Taylor Morgan is the host of KSL at Night, but he joins us because he was a co-chair in one of these precincts, and he experienced this firsthand. And we talked to the chair over Bingham High School earlier in the show, Debbie, and this is a consistent problem that we were hearing is the website, the state website, where you were supposed to pre-register before you went in. You'd receive a QR code. You'd take that QR code to, the volunteers. You'd show them the QR code. They would verify your name. You'd show them your driver's license. They would double check on a printed out piece of paper. And there were clearly Republicans that had registered that it was coming up that they were not eligible.
Taylor, we've got 30 seconds exactly. What needs to happen? I think there needs to be a full audit of what happened last night to make sure it never happens again. What's your take?
Yeah, I agree, Debbie. We need to get to the bottom of this. Frankly, the party has no business running elections. They need to get out of the business of trying to run elections and instead focus on recruiting and supporting candidates.
Taylor, thank you for joining us. Outstanding analysis. Taylor Morgan, host of KSL at Night. Thanks, Taylor.
So now we know from his math that it was about 10% turnout, not considered a high turnout. So we will be putting that on our list of questions to ask the party chair when he calls in the 11 o'clock hour.
Yeah, the thing is, though, even several thousand or tens of thousands of people, if they're hitting the site at the exact same time, that can crash a site.
I got a call for phone calls in the 10 o'clock hour starting at 10:05. We're taking your calls on your caucus experience. 801-575-TALK. 801-575-TALK. Start calling us now.
KSL FM Midvale.
KSL Salt Lake City.
From the KSL Common Spirit Health Studios, this is KSL News Radio.
Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
It's 10 o'clock at KSL News Radio. I'm Dan Bomas. KSL's top story this hour. It was a rough night for some Republican caucus goers here in Utah with long lines and registration issues. KSL News Radio's Peter Johnson has more.
Voters told KSL TV about attendees who yelled down volunteers and others who left without casting a ballot, plus a pre-registration process that often wouldn't let people in. Others mentioned that workers weren't always ready and had trouble finding rooms for each precinct to gather in.
The caucus was the only method for Republican voters in Utah to make their pick for a presidential nominee. Our top national story this hour from ABC News. With Nikki Haley stepping out of the Republican race, former President Donald Trump is set to become the party's presumptive nominee. ABC News White House correspondent Karen Travers has reaction from President Biden to the developments in the Republican race.
President Biden, in a statement, commends Nikki Haley, saying it takes a lot of courage to run for president, and she was, quote, willing to speak the truth about Trump. The president said there's a place for Haley's supporters in his campaign. Karen Travers, ABC News, the White House.
Your money at this moment, the Dow Jones average up on the day right now, 220 points. The NASDAQ up 152, recovering some of the lost ground from yesterday. And our KSL weather. Looks like we're going to see some cloudy skies and warmer temperatures on the way. That's next. KSL News Time, 10:01.
It's a priority for us at this station to bring you all sides of a story and to talk about the news fairly, completely.
Get all the facts and be really aware. Utah's Morning News with us, Tim and Amanda.
Weekday mornings 5 to 9 on KSL News Radio.
Drivers who switch and save with Progressive could save hundreds, which could be life-changing. I mean, you could put that money towards concert tickets for your daughter to see that singer who sings about painful breakups. And one song will inspire your little beauty to break up with that beast she's dating, Brian. Instead, she'll date someone who's nice and worthy of her love, not someone who addresses you and your spouse as bro. And it's all because you could save money switching at Progressive.com. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates, not available in all states.
Without the ones like you, who work tirelessly to keep things running, everything would suddenly stop. Hospitals, factories, schools, and power plants, they all depend on you. No matter the weather, emergency, or time of day, you're the ones who get it done. At Grainger, we're here for you with professional-grade industrial supplies. Count on real-time product availability and fast delivery. Call, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
This Monday Tax Tip is brought to you by Susan Spears, CEO of the Utah Association of CPAs.
Did you know that you may be missing out on important deductions and credits if you don't correctly claim your dependents on your income taxes? Remember to provide Social Security numbers for your children or other dependents. If you are divorced, only one parent may claim the child as a dependent. If you both claim the same child as a dependent, the processing of your return will come to a screeching halt while the IRS works with the parties to straighten things out. Work with your CPA to streamline the process.
Get the most out of your income tax preparation when you hire a CPA. Go to uacpa.org to find a CPA that's right for you. That's uacpa.org. uacpa.org. Listen to KSL on Monday for more tax tips from the Utah Association of CPAs.
We all hear the radio ads about the IRS. They tell you to be afraid, to be scared, and they try to frighten you into calling. I'm not here to do that. Tax Relief Advocates is different. TRA is here to tell you that if you owe money to the IRS, whether it's $5,000, $50,000, or $500,000, we have a solution. It doesn't matter if you're sitting in your car, at work, or with your kids. No matter where you are, call now. 800-575-8157. Don't lose hope. TRA can eliminate or reduce what you owe to the IRS. There is zero risk to you. If we can't reduce your tax debt, then you pay nothing. Our passion is taxes and helping individuals fix their IRS problems. We have a 5-star rating on Google and Yelp and an A+ with the Better Business Bureau. You don't need to be afraid of the IRS any longer. End your tax nightmare today by visiting us online at TRA.com or call 800-575-8157. That's 800-575-8157. Tax Relief Advocates. Real solutions for real people.
Weather Together brought to you by Sinclair's DinoPay app. Save up to 20 cents per gallon. Here's Heather Kelly.
We did have a crash on the 201 freeway eastbound right at the exit to Redwood Road. That has cleared, and now all the lanes are open, and all the delays have cleared out as well. You're still looking good on I-15 throughout Utah, Salt Lake, Davis, and Weber counties, and no problems getting to Park City. Advanced Window Products, $2,500 off 10 windows or more. AdvancedWindows.com. Affordable windows guaranteed. Heather Kelly in the KSL Traffic Center.
And our KSL weather, a high in the 50s today, but it drops back to the 40s tomorrow and Friday. There is a chance of rain tomorrow, then it dries out for the weekend. Right now, 49 degrees, partly cloudy. I'm Dan Bomas from the KSL Common Spirit Health Studios. Listen online at kslnewsradio.com. We're Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
Dave and Dujanovic, your morning companions for talk, analysis, and key perspectives on Utah's biggest stories on KSL News Radio.
It is your turn, listeners, to sound off on your experiences at last night's Republican in-person caucuses. We have gone over a list of complaints that we received here at KSL from Republican voters who either had tech problems pre-registering, there wasn't enough Wi-Fi bandwidth, the Utah GOP website appeared to have crashed on them, and lots of confusion, too, when it came to tallying the votes. And we want to take your phone calls now, 801-575-TALK, so you can tell us what your experience was like.
This was my first experience going to caucus night, and I will say this. I like the idea. I liked getting together with my neighbors. Many people I didn't even realize were very political. And we had conversations. It was a good environment. That's about where my positive experience ended. Because once we got into the nitty-gritty, and I'm looking at it, the way we were voting, and the volunteers are doing the best they can, but they're not professionals. And there was just a clumsiness and a messiness that was happening. And when it comes to elections, we have solved the equation. Why are we reinventing the wheel? It doesn't make any sense to me. And it was pass out ballots, fill it out, drop it in a Tupperware, and then everybody is like trying to count it afterwards. It was very messy.
Joy, let's take your phone call first. Joy, you're from Eagle Mountain. How was your experience?
Hi, yeah. So, I mean, I could tell that the people who were running it were doing their best. But one of the things that most concerned me was how little the demographics of those who came to the caucus to vote even represented our precinct. Because out of like the 25, 30 people attending, only 3 of us were women. And those of us who were there kind of looked to be between the ages of 40 to 90. So it just looked like there was not a lot of representation for younger voters. And people who actually live in our precinct are actually mostly young families.
Sure.
So the representation is very different than what actually makes up our neighborhoods. And I think caucuses sometimes drive a certain turnout, and sometimes they can be often us older adults. So I wonder if that's just a side consequence or if there was some intent to kind of drive a certain votership. But that was just my experience, and we had about 30 people.
Joy,
so
thank you. That's very
take.
interesting because we had 70 show up, and we all squoze into this small little classroom. We only had 3 kids. They were 18 years old. Everyone else was in their 40s or higher.
Rachel, how did things go in Logan last night for you?
It actually went okay as far as at the precinct, but I agree with that caller and the previous caller before that it's selected for a certain demographic to show up at the precinct. And I actually think there was some intention behind that the older, more conservative base are the people who are going to show up, and it's not as representative of maybe all of the voters.
Do you feel like that swayed in favor of former President Trump then when it came to Utah Republicans, in the final vote count?
100%, yes.
Thanks for the call. As far as demographics, who shows up, that's on the individual, right? The fact that older people show up more than younger people, that's on the younger people. It's not on the people that are animated and excited to show up.
It's also on the party to get younger people motivated to be participating in elections as well.
Heather in Springville, what do you think?
Hello. So it was it was okay. Like, we went to Maple Mountain in Spanish Fork, and we didn't have any problems with technology, but our main concern was when we went to cast our ballot. It was just like a little printed Xerox paper. When we got to the door, they acted like they were like, "What do you want to do?" Like, they didn't give us a ballot, and so I tracked somebody down, and they finally found another person who gave me a ballot, and then they were like, "Well, just fill it out right here." So I was kind of made to fill it out in front of the worker. So I voted, and I voted for Nikki Haley, and then he said, "Okay, go hand it to this lady on the front row." So I went and handed it to her, and then she stuffed it in her purse.
Wait, stop. She stuffed it in her purse?
Yes. And I just didn't know what to do. I just started laughing.
I used a Tupperware. Caitlin had it like a bag, a very secure bag.
Was the purse like the place that all the ballots were deposited, or was this just on her and she put it in her own purse?
Yes.
She put it in her own
just
purse.
Her purse.
Yeah. So the plastic bag that Caitlin used and the Tupperware that Dave used, the purse was actually her personal purse.
You got a lady's purse. Okay.
I don't know whose
Check.
purse it was. It was just a purse, and and it might have been because I came in a little bit late and they were kind of starting their meeting, and maybe they had already gathered up all that.
Do you know if your vote was counted?
No.
Yeah, it was in the lady's purse, Deb. Didn't you hear her? She put it in the purse.
Probably in the crack where all the crumbs are. She'll probably find it like next week.
Hey, Cheerios.
There's so many. I don't know whether to laugh or just to be disgusted
it's funny.
by how this thing was run.
I mean, it's sad, but it's also funny.
Heather, so sorry about that. What a mess.
Crying, laughing.
Yeah.
Crying, laughing.
Well, thanks for your phone call. Rachel in Orem, hi. How'd it go last night for you?
It went really well in our precinct,
Good.
although there were technological hang-ups. But as the other callers just mentioned, and some of them have said, the Republican Party has done this intentionally to keep control and power of how they run the show in Utah. And it just needs to absolutely end. To hear Taylor Morgan say that there were 800,000 Republicans registered as Republicans and only, 75,000? That is pathetic and shame on the Republican Party, because that has just literally kept those people from voting. I had all kinds of friends, young friends, that were busy that couldn't go, and then they looked at voting the absentee method, and they made that so difficult to do that they just, I'm not going to do it. And people talk about apathy. Well, look at what they've done to create the apathy with how it's gone. And then laughing about how how voting by paper. I have served as a delegate several times, and you go to the conventions, and I about want to go crazy because that's what people want to do. They want to vote by paper. They don't want to use the electronic because they're suspicious. And I'm thinking, for heaven's sakes, we're in a day and age now where we have the technology and the ability to reach out to people. We can count those votes and know that they're very secure. And you see it right here in Utah County with our county recorder that's trying to, on his own, get rid of vote by mail. And Nikki Haley would have won. She would have won. I was appalled to hear that previous caller say that it was stuck in a purse. And that Nikki Haley would have won had people been able to vote by mail. It was just the caucus system. I'm 100% with Taylor Morgan. It's just not okay. And Dave, with your commenting that being able to get with your neighbors and visit, that is nice. However, we are in a day and age also where getting with some of my neighbors, I was leery about what I said and questions I asked because I knew right off when one of the candidates for precinct to run for a precinct chair stood up and told us that everybody that he thought everyone on January 6th should be pardoned. I'm about ready to run screaming, but it's tragic that this happened this way because it would have sent such a huge message nationally had Nikki Haley won Utah.
And she performed well, but with the ballots that we've seen, she lost pretty significantly. It looks to be about 58-42. So, yeah, I agree. It would have been huge, but it wasn't that close, at least as we're seeing the tallies come out.
So lots of incredible insight of what went on for Republican voters in different areas of our state. We've got more to come, and we want to put you on standby again. After we have a conversation just the next few minutes with the lieutenant governor and getting to the bottom, at least some of these questions, she may be getting some at her office too, because ultimately she's in charge of elections. But she wasn't in charge of this one. Okay, this was a Republican Party-run election. And maybe that explains a lot about what went so wrong last night for so many. But we're going to take your phone calls at 10:35 as well. So if you're on the line and you were holding to talk to us about it, we do want to hear from you. But we're going to get the lieutenant governor on the line next.
Dave and Dujanovic.
Current events can have a lot of moving parts. Our job is to make it easy to keep up.
You're part of a bigger world, so spend 15 or 20 minutes here and be part of it.
Join us weekday mornings between 5 and 9 on KSL News Radio.
For the right repair and the right paint, the right choice is manufacturer-certified Martins Collision Repair. Hi, I'm Tiago Martins, and few have met the rigorous certification by Kia, Dodge, Infiniti, Chrysler, Jeep, Nissan, Hyundai, and many others. But it's one more reason that Martins is your right choice. Check online at martinscollision.com. On State Street in Orem and in Salem, we work with all insurance companies.
The right repair, the right paint, the right choice. Martins Collision Repair.
For the right repair and the right paint, the right choice is manufacturer-certified Martins Collision Repair. Hi, I'm Tiago Martins. Many shops have ASC and ICAR-certified technicians, but few have certifications by General Motors, Nissan, Chrysler, Hyundai, Jeep, and many others, making Martins your right choice. Online at martinscollision.com, on State Street in Orem and in Salem, we work with all insurance companies.
The right repair, the right paint, the right choice. Martins Collision Repair.
Wherever you find yourself on the road of life.
The freeway blocked because of the jackknife truck trailer.
It's better with guidance from the KSL traffic team.
It looks like traffic there is starting to move again.
Time your commute with traffic and weather together every 10 minutes on the 9s, mornings and afternoons
on KSL News Radio.
If you're thinking about doing something with your house, selling it, maybe buying a new one, downgrading, upgrading, whatever it might be, the Stern team can help you out. Russell Fawcett joins us right now. Hey, thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
So when does the housing market activity typically start spinning up and picking up in Utah, Russell?
Yeah, it really goes with the season. So as the snow starts to, go away and we start seeing showings pick up in March, and really our April is one of the biggest months for showings of the year.
So, why is that? Just because it's in the back of the people's head, like it's time to get into a house.
Yep. A lot of it aligns with, I think, with school. And so April, it warms up, people are out and about, and they want to be in the, kind of that, we see it in June, July. A lot of people start moving the end of May. And so we really see kind of that with seasonality, just really those summer months, but it picks up in the spring.
I don't doubt that they want to be in their home by the time the kids start their new school.
Right.
And so the kids can get adjusted to the neighborhood. How does that affect the price of homes when things start to really heat up?
Yeah, so the way pricing works in Utah typically is we'll see sometimes a slight increase in the first quarter, and sometimes, honestly, that is weather dependent. And then second quarter is typically when we see the peak. Third quarter levels out, and then fourth quarter, sometimes we see a slight dip. But as far as if you're looking to get the most amount out of your money, typically second quarter is when we see the highest prices.
Well, if you don't mind, stick around. We're going to talk to you off and on over the next hour. But go to the sternteam.com, click sell, then go to home evaluation. You're going to find out what your property is worth in seconds.
Guys, did you know your testosterone affects everything in your system, including how you feel and perform every day? Right now, Revive Men's Health Salt Lake City will check your testosterone for free. Knowing your T levels is the first step in understanding if you have low T. Your testosterone level impacts your energy, libido, sleep, weight, hair loss, mood, and even ED. Maintaining an appropriate T level can change your whole life. Most men start to see changes in their hormone levels in their 30s. Experience and results matter. So what are you waiting for? Get your T-levels checked today by local, experienced, and trusted men's health experts. They've helped thousands of men since 2011. They're so confident they can help you, they even guarantee it. Call Revive today and schedule your free testosterone test, free exam, and free consultation. Call Revive Men's Health at 801-263-7777. That's 801-263-7777. Or visit revivemenshealth.com.
Any Hour Services can help you make sure your furnace keeps you warm this winter. Whether you need a tune-up, a repair, or a second opinion about replacing it, call Any Hour Services or visit anyhourservices.com.
With the three things you need to know this hour, I'm Dan Palmas. First, some, but not all, of the Republican caucus locations in Utah experienced long lines, computer glitches, and confusion that kept people from voting. Second, Park City has a tradition of 4th of July fireworks, but this year a drone show will take their place. Third, President Biden is hoping he can win some of Nikki Haley's voters over to his campaign now, since she's dropped out of the presidential race. 49 degrees, partly cloudy in Salt Lake City. Back to Dave and Dujanovic on KSL News Radio.
Dave and Dujanovic.
Okay, callers, we know you were lined up. The phone lines were just ripping, blowing up on us. So we're going to get back to your live phone calls about your experience at the Republican caucus in-person meetings last night. A lot of folks we heard from, things did not go so well. There were some issues. One woman called just a few minutes ago and said when she gave her vote for Nikki Haley, one of the volunteers stuck the piece of paper in her personal purse. Another woman said there was kind of like low turnout and was concerned about how the party had handled this because it skewed the demographic, at least in her area, toward, an older demographic. And so there were only 3 women who were there because they didn't use a mail-in process this year.
And quite frankly, the turnout has been abysmal. Predictable, though. We knew that caucus night was not going to have the turnout as you would just mailing out ballots. But to give you an idea, there's 870,000 registered Republicans in Utah. In 2020, 4 years ago, 345,000 voted. It was 75,000 last night. A fifth of what it was back in 2020. So turnout was abysmal.
Were the only complaints we heard. We heard a number of complaints about technical issues, the GOP website crashing. People could not get pre-registered as they were instructed to do before they were able to participate in the caucus meetings. All this added up to lots and lots of complaints and blame to go around. But the blame rests solely on the Republican Party. It is not Lieutenant Governor Deidre Henderson's issue because she was not in charge of last night's GOP in-person caucus meetings. But I got word, Lieutenant Governor, that you got a lot of blame anyways.
Hey, Debbie, how are you?
Let's clear the air. Let's clear the air.
Yeah, I attended my caucus like apparently 75,000 other Republicans did last night. And I had a pretty good experience. I feel bad that there were a lot of people that had a bad experience, but I think it's really important for people to understand that what happened yesterday at caucus, it was not an election. People were expecting a primary election for president, the Republicans. But the Republican Party chose not to have a primary. So what happened last night was more like a straw poll. It's not anything that I'm going to officially certify. The state has no control over it. They didn't follow any state processes, which is okay because it wasn't an election. The Democratic Party chose to have an election. The Republican Party chose not to. And I think that's a really important distinction to make, especially as people are looking at what happened last night. There's a lot of really good things about going to neighborhood caucus, connecting with your neighbors and friends and the people who live near you and discussing issues. That grassroots process is important, and I understand why the party would have wanted to increase turnout to that. But it did provide some confusion, and that's unfortunate.
Lieutenant Governor is joining us right now, Deidre Henderson, typically over elections here in Utah, and that is quite the revelation. As you say, we have to remember this wasn't an election per se. It also feels a little semantic to me because I was there, as you were, and I voted. I was given it. I got to choose. Like, it's a very thin difference between an official vote that county clerks run and what I was doing. I guess I feel like we may be making some excuses here, saying, "Oh well, this wasn't a real vote. This was just a preferential poll."
Well, I suppose it can sound like an excuse, but that is what it was, and it's. I've heard from a lot of people who were frustrated that they didn't get a chance to have their ballot in the mail or take an official vote.
Yeah.
But they'll, that's a decision that was made, months ago by the party. Maybe in 4 years there'll be different laws on the books. Right now, our laws allow for parties to choose whether or not they have a primary or not. And maybe those laws will change. Maybe what happened last night will precipitate some of that change. So there's no telling. But I am.
Go ahead.
Sorry, Debbie.
You go ahead. No, go ahead. Finish up.
Well, I'm grateful that so many people chose to go. And it is frustrating to hear that maybe, in some places that not enough people showed up, and in other places they were completely overwhelmed. But I do want to give a shout out to thousands of volunteers around the state. There were hundreds of precincts, a lot of really good people. I believe in the good intentions of all of the people who helped run caucuses yesterday. Were some of the processes maybe a little bit, not ideal? Maybe. But I'm not going to cast aspersions on anyone's intentions. Definitely nothing should be shoved in people's purses. No ballot should be shoved in people's purses. But I think those might be outliers, and I really do think that the intention was really good. And for the most part, I imagine that the voting process, especially my precinct, they did it all out in front of everybody, and it was very above board, and they were careful and thorough. And I imagine that's how it was around the state.
Well, I just wanted to say last night as I was reading through the complaints that we were getting here at KSL, and I was also getting complaints on text from people who I knew that were kind of over these precincts, and also on social media, Lieutenant Governor, there's where my mind went. This is why we in Utah elect people like yourself, that we elect county clerks who know what they're doing and who hire trained staff to make sure all our elections, whether you want to call it a presidential preference poll or a caucus, but an election process is completely transparent. It is aligned that every voter has an opportunity in our state to have the same access to the places where they're asked to cast a ballot, which did not happen last night, according to what the complaints that we're seeing here, didn't suffer from crashes of websites and technical issues and that kind of thing. So it's job security for you, in my view, and our county clerks as well. And I thank you so much for coming on the line. And I think it is really important for our listeners and all the voters in Utah to understand that this is a Utah GOP issue. This is not a county clerk issue. This is not a lieutenant governor's office issue. It was the GOP party who made this decision, and they're the ones that have to answer for the problems. We appreciate your time with us today, Lieutenant Governor Deidre Henderson.
Yeah, thank you so much. Debbie, when I was a river guide, a whitewater rafting guide, so often, and I had years and years of experience, I would see well-intentioned scoutmasters taking people down dangerous rivers. They were volunteers. They didn't know what they were doing. It was unsafe. There's a reason why we have professionals doing things. There's a reason why we have the professional county clerks with the infrastructure to run elections, because they are professional. They've seen it all. They've worked through all of the problems. I don't understand why we're trying to fix something that wasn't broken. This shook my faith way more than any election I've ever had in the past with the way we were tallying and counting votes. It seemed messy, though well-intentioned.
We're going to continue to take your live phone calls. You're Republican. You went to a caucus. It was in person last night. Maybe it was a great experience for you. You didn't see any of these problems. Call us. Maybe you had a whole host of problems that you want to air live on KSL News Radio. Call us, 801-575-TALK. And as we're lining up your phone calls, I want to let you know, we got an email here at KSL from a man. He and his wife, according to this email, drove 80 miles for what they thought was going to be their in-person caucus meeting. He says they drove through mud. They drove through rain. They drove through snow, only to find out it was not their location. He's joining the line next.
It's 10:30 at KSL News Radio. I'm Dan Bomas. KSL's top story this hour, a speeding driver who wouldn't pull over because he was too stressed may have had his stress level go up a bit after he was charged with speeding over 120 miles an hour. Here's KSL News Radio's Michael Commit.
This driver later said that the reason he was feeling so stressed in the first place was because he was dealing with issues between him and his girlfriend. He clocked 120 miles per hour in his getaway from the pursuing deputy, but he's now facing charges for that evasion and for speeding.
He hasn't been charged with aggressive driving. Our top national story this hour from ABC News. With Nikki Haley stepping out of the Republican race, former President Donald Trump set to become the party's presumptive nominee. ABC News White House correspondent Karen Travers has reaction from President Biden to the developments in the Republican race.
President Biden, in a statement, commends Nikki Haley, saying it takes a lot of courage to run for president, and she was, quote, willing to speak the truth about Trump. The president said there's a place for Haley's supporters in his campaign. Karen Travers, ABC News, the White House.
Your money at this moment, the Dow Jones average up on the day, 235 points now, the NASDAQ up 185. And our KSL weather looks like it'll cool off today, but warm up again tomorrow. That's next. KSL News Time, 10:32.
Here's a way to get breaking news updates anywhere you go.
At the store or in a work meeting, you can get breaking news on your phone.
You can quickly read it, swipe, or click for more. It's super discreet, super fast.
That's the app for KSL News Radio.
Things have been moving so quickly in the housing market, it's kind of hard to keep track of, like, what's my home worth? I think a lot of people have wondered that either just casually or in earnest. So the Stern team's Russell Fawcett joins us right now. You guys, you take that seriously. You want to help people out and figure out what their home really is worth.
We do. We want to make sure they know what it's worth and make sure when they're thinking about selling, we want to have a consultation with them and see if that is their best option in this market.
Russell, you guys are offering, the Stern team's offering a cool program for those who are thinking about selling. Can you tell us a little more about that? I'm curious.
Yeah, one of the things that we've seen as we've met with people is they want to know what to do with their home to get it ready for the market. And we see most homes go on the market in, spring and summer. And so we thought we'd get ahead of it by offering, a free staging consultation where we're going to go through and tell them what they need to get their home ready to go on the market, even if they're not thinking about it right now.
Can you give them options? Because I know when it comes to staging, sometimes it's, hey, we're going to get all of your old terrible furniture out of there and bring in some new stuff, or we'll work with what you have. Can you cover all of the different levels of staging depending on your budget?
Right. So we're going to go through it and we're going to make recommendations. So maybe it is just adding some greenery. Maybe it's painting a room that's, bubblegum pink for your daughter or whatever it might be, right? Or if it's a vacant home, we might go through an option of a fully staged home where we're bringing in furniture and, rugs and everything to make the home appeal to the buyers that are going to be going through.
Russell, as a seller, several times I believe in the power of staging wholeheartedly to sell a home. I think you guys have really hit the mark with this opportunity for sellers.
Make sure you go to sternteam.com. You can click on sell, then go to home evaluation. You're going to find out what your property is worth. Russell from the Stern team, thank you for joining us. Yeah, check it out at sternteam.com.
Now, during Staples Print Big Sale, get $20 off your print purchase of $100 or more, $50 off your print purchase of $200 or more, and $100 off your print purchase of $300 or more. So the more you print at Staples, the more you save. To demonstrate, print at Staples, you save. But if you print at Staples, you save. See how that works? Staples Print Big Sale. Print more, save more. Up to $100. Ends 4/6. Visit staples.com/print for details.
Tired of hearing scary radio ads about the IRS? Tax Relief Advocates is different. TRA is here to tell you that if you owe money to the IRS, whether it's $5,000 or $500,000, we have a solution. TRA can eliminate or reduce what you owe to the IRS with zero risk to you. If we can't reduce your tax debt, then you pay nothing. We have a 5-star rating on Google and Yelp and an A+ with a BBB. End your tax nightmare today by visiting TRA.com or call 800-583-6681. That's 800-583-6681.
Traffic and weather together brought to you by Sinclair's Dino Pay app. Save up to 20 cents per gallon. Here's Heather Kelly.
Things are looking really good across the Wasatch Front. We've had a couple of reports of fender benders on the roadways, but nothing that's causing any type of delay at the moment. So right now you're going to have great speeds whether you're on I-15, the east or west side belt routes, or the 201 freeway. Common Spirit, hospitals, clinics, and caregivers, all connected to advanced healthcare in Colorado, Kansas, and Utah. Healthcare with human kindness is here. Hello, human kindness. Heather Kelly in the KSL Traffic Center.
And a KSL weather, a high in the 50s today, but it drops back to the 40s tomorrow and Friday. Chance of rain tomorrow, then it dries out for the weekend. Right now, 48 degrees, partly cloudy. I'm Dan Bomas from the KSL Common Spirit Health Studios. Listen online at kslnewsradio.com. We're Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
Dave and Dujanovic, your morning companions for talk, analysis, and key perspectives on Utah's biggest stories on KSL News Radio.
Continue to track down and verify the complaints that we have received here at KSL about issues with the in-person caucus meetings last night. The Republican Party had organized. Many said they were completely disorganized with lots of problems. We're going to be speaking live in the 11 o'clock hour to the chair of the GOP, Robert Axson, when he calls the show to have him answer some of these questions you all have been asking.
I had one woman go into a full panic attack. I mean, maybe that's overstating things, but really you could see the apprehension when she was trying to register at just outside the classroom as she was trying to check in. The website had crashed. As she put in her information, it came out and said, not eligible. And she was so shocked. She's like, I'm a lifelong Republican. I've never been anything but a Republican. And she was starting to panic, like, well, what's going on? And there wasn't technical support. There wasn't an avenue. They just told her, well, just keep trying. Keep trying.
She's far from the only one who had issues. Republican LeVar Webb, political consultant, lobbyist. I read this email, LeVar, that we got here at Broadcast House. I think it looks like you sent it. It said, my wife and I live in a remote area of Box Elder County. We both pre-registered to attend our GOP caucus meeting, received registration confirmations by email showing our location. And you found out after you drove 80 miles through mud, rain, and snow that you had been given the wrong location.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. And I sort of blame myself on this because I should have been smarter. I've been doing this stuff for 50 years and been to many caucus meetings and been delegates and organized caucus meetings. So my wife and I got our confirmation. We live in the far northwest corner of the state in Box Elder County. It said caucus location and an address in Perry, Utah. And Perry, of course, is in Box Elder County. And I immediately thought, that's a long ways away. But I just sort of assumed naively that they must be consolidating a whole bunch of precincts. Box Elder County is pretty rural. And so I Googled it, and it said it was 85 miles away. But we really wanted to go and wanted to vote for Nikki Haley. And So we drove down there, arrived early, kind of early, right at 6, and there, rather than this being a big location with lots and lots of precincts, there were only a handful, and we showed them our registration. They said, we have no idea how you got that address on your registration, and it's not here, obviously, and we don't know where you should go. And one of the fellows there did have the phone number of the county party chair. And so I immediately called her, and she immediately picked up, and she said, oh, I'm so sorry. I don't know how this happened. I'll get back to you and tell you what to do. Well, we got in our car, and we started heading back home, and we eventually got I actually texted her again because they didn't get a phone call, and she said, well, she'd asked my actual precinct chair, and my precinct is in Park Valley, Utah.
I know where that is. That's not very far from your home, is it? It's about 30 minutes?
Well, it's across the mountain, yeah, but it's about 30 minutes. And so both, and I don't blame her, the county chair or the precinct chair. She did text me, and again, both of them were so apologetic. They don't know how it happened. They still don't know how that address could have been entered into our registration confirmation. And the precinct chair, this was well after 9 o'clock after we got home, but she texted me and said, well, we'd still like to count your vote, and you can just text your vote to me, who you were voting for, which we did. I have no idea whether that, whether that violated any rules or whatever, just to send your vote in by text, but she says she got it and would count it.
LeVar,
So,
this is outstanding. I put mine in a Tupperware. Our producer put it into a bag. Another lady stuffed it in her purse, and you just got to text yours. This is incredible. This story and tale is getting better every time we talk to somebody.
LeVar, thank you so much. LeVar, lifelong Republican, said he and his wife drove 80 miles to a precinct that they were told to go to based on their confirmation through mud and snow and rain. And they got there and people were like, this isn't the right place. So he ended up casting his ballot via text. So you're right. A woman at another precinct in Utah County said that she gave it to a woman, a volunteer, who then stuffed it in her purse, her personal purse. You stuffed it in a Tupperware. Caitlin Johnston, our producer, put it in a clear plastic bag.
A very secure plastic bag.
Hey, Bob. Good morning. Thanks for holding the line. You ran a caucus last night. How was your experience?
Well, mine was good. I'm not new at this. In fact, I'm above precinct chairs, we have ledge district chairs, and that's what I am. So I oversaw 23 precincts that voted. And what we did, there were no purses for ballots, right? We used a locking transparent box. We had people check in and get credentialed. And, we didn't really have any problem. I had the printed out list, alphabetized, so we could look them up on that. If they weren't on that, we sent them to the lieutenant governor's website, and they could show us their party affiliation and that they were in the right precinct. We'd give them a pink credential to say, okay, now you can vote, and here's your presidential preference ballot. I kept a card over the slot in our locked transparent box, and when they showed their credential, I removed the card, and they could put their ballot in. So everybody could see, right, for the whole meeting. It was visible, and then we counted it in public. So I actually have been an advocate to try to get the GOP to be the example of good elections, right? And we have work to do. But like our ballots for state delegate, we had a vote. I printed them out on green paper with the county party logo, with the date, with the precinct, right? So nobody's going to probably walk in with, spare green ballots, right? And I think people were satisfied. And
Good. That's how it should go everywhere, ahead. Bob. That is exactly how it should go everywhere, anywhere. Every Republican in this state who showed up at a caucus meeting last night should have had that experience. And that's unfortunately not what we're hearing happened.
Well, we're working on it. And, I really like it, and sometimes they don't. But when my precinct chairs get reelected to the same office, I love it because now they're experienced, they've done it, and we can up their game a little bit. We can say, hey, why don't you use, these kind of printed out ballots, that's on different colored paper for different elections, and maybe with, some logo that's unique. And that way we don't, I hate the white paper slips. I hate it. Right. That's nonsense.
I was the white paper slip guy. Yeah, I was in that precinct, the white paper slip for
Bob,
sure.
Bob, let me ask you this question. We've got to run because we're going to have a former county clerk on the line next to ask her what the best practices are when it comes to these elections. I don't think she's going to say what happened last night. Maybe she'd take your situation at your neighborhood caucuses and say, yeah, that is best practices. Did you have issues with photocopied driver licenses and absentee ballots? Because we heard earlier from somebody who's in your similar position who was over the Bingham High situation in South Jordan, in the South Jordan area and Riverton area, or I guess Bingham, he has a huge swath of area that he was over, who said that he took with him the photocopies of the driver licenses that for the absentee ballots and was going to shred them. Did you have confusion over that in your area?
Well, not really confusion. Our directions were you can either give it back, or if they leave it with you, make sure you shred it, right? And we put everything in an envelope after caucus. Everything goes in one envelope, our cash donations, and political parties are going to take cash donations seriously, right? So we put it all in there, we seal it up, they deliver them to my house, then I take them to the county party, and we count all the money, we shred the ballots. We have new registered voters, so we are going to give those to the county clerk.
You already shredded the driver license photocopies that were with you?
Well, actually, that's part of today's work. They're still in those, envelopes, and we do have some to still shred, but they're all in one place. They're all under supervision, and, nobody's making copies. We're going to shred those, right? I don't love that part. I wish we had shredders on site, but we usually don't.
It's uncomfortable.
So
it's uncomfortable, I think, just
It's wild is what it is.
Yeah, that's a great way.
Yeah.
Dave, I love all the verbs and the adjectives Dave's using today.
I do have a statistic for you, though. I looked something up off the air. For our 800,000 GOP statewide people to get a 99% confidence level, like if you did a poll with a 1% margin of error, you need under 6,000 votes. And we had a lot more than that. So I think the caucus vote is representative.
Well, thank you for joining us.
Appreciate it.
That was a very, very detailed experience, and it was very different than what I had. So again, that kind of speaks to the flexibility that each chair had to run their elections.
Let's get the former county clerk Amelia Powers Gardner on the line live to weigh in on best practices and where she sees that the problems were at last night's GOP caucus meetings.
Dave and Dujanovic.
Here's a trick to podcasting at work and getting all the Utah news you love.
Download the KSL News Radio app.
The podcast for Utah's morning news and Dave and Debbie are right there. Dozens of podcasts a day.
That's the app for KSL News Radio.
Held over due to popular demand. This is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to save 40 to 80% on a hot tub and swim spa. This weekend only, Friday through Sunday, Utah State Fair Park. Be advised, this is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to save 40 to 80% on a hot tub and swim spa. This weekend only, Friday through Sunday, Utah State Fair Park. 18-month interest-free financing. Our factories have demanded we sell 1,000 hot tubs and swim spas this weekend. Utah State Fair Park. Huge factory incentives, factory rebates, this weekend only. Utah State Fair Park. We can remove your old hot tub. Free delivery of your new hot tub. Hot tub starting at $2,999. Utah State Fair Park. Free delivery of your new hot tub. Just relax and enjoy. Utah State Fair Park. Friday, noon to 8 p.m. Saturday, 10 a.m. to 8 p.m. Sunday, 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. Free admission, free parking, free delivery. Utah State Fair Park. Call 833-SPA-SALE or visit hottubandSwimSpaSale.com.
Russell Fawcett's joining us right now from the Stern team. And Russell, thank you for joining us as we have been having this continued conversation about the housing market in Utah. It's exploded. It is the hot season right now when everybody wants to sell and buy. So you've got markets on both sides right now.
We do. So right now, with the reduced inventory, it's stayed kind of more what feels like a seller's market as far as sellers are still getting top dollar. But with the increased interest rate and affordability, it can feel like a buyer's market as well to a seller where there's not just a flood of buyers. And so depending on price range and condition of the home, it can feel like a buyer or seller's market right now.
Russell, you said April is going to be the hot month for home sales in Utah, and that feels like it's just right around the corner. It's next month. I've always felt like when I'm selling my home, it's never too soon to start getting it prepped, getting it spring cleaned, getting the furniture taken out that's buyers could potentially trip over. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I really think starting early is good. I don't know if you guys have ever tried to paint a room while you're still living in the home or do any home project right while you're living in it. And so selling the home with everything that goes with it can already be a stressful situation for a lot of home sellers. And so to get started early, understanding what you need to do can take some of that stress out of it so you can enjoy hopefully kind of that next phase of your life, whether you're upgrading or downsizing on your next home.
And you're doing this for the month of March where you're offering a free, no obligation home staging consultation.
We are. So we want people to be educated. We want them to know what they need to do to get ready to sell their home. We find that staging can affect the value, 1 to 5%, which is more than usually that first price reduction. So we want them to go on the market and be ready to sell.
Well, thank you, Russell Fawcett with the Stern Team. You can go to sternteam.com, click sell, go to home evaluation, and you can find out what your property is worth in seconds.
With interest rates coming back down, I bet the real estate market will pick back up in 2024. We're already seeing that, Tim.
Yeah.
But it doesn't really matter how the market is doing when you have the right team. So if you're looking to sell your house, now you want to downsize or you need more space, you need the Stern Team.
The Stern Team has taught us, I can think of a handful of things that I would worry about if I was buying or selling, but there are 100 details that are involved in selling a home, and they have lots of people that are handling every detail so nothing falls through the cracks.
And they have so many different options. I mean, I worked with Cammie there at the Stern Team, and she was awesome. But if you need an instant cash offer, you can do that. If you need to buy before you sell, you can do that. They have flexible fees.
They also have people that they represent that are looking to buy a home, so maybe they can make that perfect connection within the Stern Team.
So don't put off selling your house or buying a house because you think the market isn't just right. The market is right with the Stern Team.
Go online to sternteam.com or just Google the Stern Team. With the 3 things you need to know this hour, I'm Dan Bomas. First, a speeding driver told police he was too stressed to pull over, but his stress level may have gone up when he was charged with going 120 miles an hour. Second, not everyone who attended Republican caucuses in Utah said they had a bad experience. Third, Nikki Haley stopped short of endorsing former President Trump after losing all but one state in the Super Tuesday primaries. Right now, 48 degrees, mostly cloudy in Salt Lake City. And back to Dave and Dujanovic on KSL News Radio.
Dave and Dujanovic.
We're talking about the Republican caucus in-person meetings last night where there were a lot of problems. These were the least of which were the really long lines that Republican voters had to stand in. Then there was problems pre-registering them, which they were required to do, and there was Wi-Fi issues. And then the Utah GOP website appeared to have crashed. People were frustrated. I think one of the biggest, craziest incidents we heard of is a woman in Utah County just called the show and said when she went to cast her ballot for Nikki Haley, the volunteer took her ballot and put it in her purse. This just does not sound like best practices to me. It sounds like things were a real mess last night. Amelia Powers Gardner live on the line with us. She's a former Utah County clerk. You've been texting back and forth with Dave this morning about your concerns.
Okay, what was your experience?
So my experience, I was a volunteer for my precinct. As you can imagine, my precinct chair was very happy to have a former county clerk in his precinct.
I bet.
So I was a volunteer. You guys are well aware, and so is the state, that the reason I got involved in public office in the first place is because I hate lines to vote, right? That's why I got involved, is because Utah County had 5 and 6 hour lines. And when I came in as county clerk, I said we will have no lines longer than 45 minutes. And unfortunately, there were some lines last night. I don't know how much time you've got, but I can tell you a lot of best practices.
Start ticking through some of the issues that you saw as red flags.
And I do want to start by saying I am a fan of the caucus convention system, right? As an elected official, I would not have had the money to be able to run for office that first time without the caucus convention system. I was able to run for county clerk against a 3-term incumbent with less than $10,000 in the second largest county in the state. That would not have been possible without the caucus convention system. I will say that I pre-registered myself. Roughly 75,000 people pre-registered. And for those who did pre-register, things went very smoothly and they went very well. And another thing that I think went well, my 17-year-old son, who turns 18 before the general election, pre-registered, was able to show up and was able to participate, and on a whim at the last minute decided to run for county delegate and was elected. We need more young people involved in politics. We need more young people to be invested in the future of our communities and our nation, and Caucus provides that. So those are the goods, right? Now, on the flip side, there were some things that went wrong. I think you've outlined those. The website had lags and delays. Wi-Fi at schools can be problematic. But I think a lot of this comes down to the fact that the organization, this is a volunteer-run organization. And I want to just maybe do a juxtaposition here between a primary election and a preference caucus, which is what we had, right? We do need to recognize this wasn't a primary election. Running a primary in the state of Utah, had we done this through a primary, it would have cost roughly $2 million. If the Republican Party had chosen to do this through a primary, that's an additional $2 million in ballots that would have been sent out to run this through the county level. And instead, they chose to use volunteers. Now, one of the things to point out is there are a lot of people out there that say, you know what, we should stop doing vote by mail. We should go to paper at the polls on election day, and it's not going to cost us millions of dollars because we can do it using volunteers. For anyone who says that, last night was an example of what you get with thousands of polling locations run by volunteers.
It was messy for a lot of people, Amelia. It just was. Right. Amelia Powers Gardner is a former Utah County Clerk, live on the line. She was at a precinct last night. She helped run one of them. Things sound like they went smoothly there, but that wasn't the experience. And in my view, as a Utah resident, as somebody who's covered elections for 30 plus years in this state as a journalist, is that every single person who shows up,
right,
no matter what it is, deserves to have a smooth experience. And they don't deserve
They need a backup plan.
They need a backup plan. They need enough Wi-Fi. They need a system that doesn't crash. They need an opportunity for the elderly who don't have all of this computer or all this technology, even like a cell phone, to be able to register.
For everyone who pre-registered in our precinct, they showed up, we scanned their QR code, we verified who they were, and we gave them a wristband and sent them in. Not an issue. But that was only about half of the people that showed up in my precinct. We had about 50 people in my precinct. For everybody else, because the system had crashed, we had a paper roll of the registered Republicans in our precinct. If they were on that paper roll, they were good to go. But you're still going to have about 20 to 30% of the people that are registered Republicans that aren't going to show up on that paper roll, because several years ago we had legislators that ran a bill on privacy and they withhold information. For those individuals, if they wanted to participate, I had them go to vote.utah.gov. Our lieutenant governor's website worked great last night. They looked up their own voter registration, then they showed it to me and showed me they're a registered Republican, and they could move on. But we would need volunteers that could pivot and could do that. They needed paper rolls printed out, and they needed to know that they could go to the LG's website.
But most volunteers weren't the former county clerk, and that's what's hilarious about it. Yeah, what you described, that's fantastic. You are also one of the foremost experts in elections in Utah. So when we put that kind of pressure or the outside of the box thinking on volunteers that just kind of fill in, That's unfair. But thank you for your experience, your expertise, Amelia Powers. Thank you.
KSL FM Midvale.
KSL Salt Lake City.
From the KSL Common Spirit Health Studios, this is KSL News Radio.
Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
It's 11 o'clock at KSL News Radio. I'm Dan Bomas. KSL's top local story this hour. Park City could be seeing a change to their 4th of July celebrations. KSL News Radio's Michael Commit has more.
So you'll probably recall how the city ran with a drone show instead of fireworks last July. There's a chance they'll be doing that for the next 5 years. It's all an effort to reduce the wildfire risk during fire-prone seasons.
Park City also plans to be heavily involved if the Olympic Games come back to Utah. And our top national story this hour from ABC News, price of gold typically goes up in times of economic uncertainty, and it's rising right now. ABC's Jim Ryan has more.
High interest rates tend to put pressure on gold, but investors are betting that the Federal Reserve will pull back rates in June. Gold also is considered a safe haven against overseas instability, and its value has climbed more than $300 an ounce since the start of the Israel-Hamas war. Jim Ryan, ABC News.
Your money at this moment, the Dow Jones average looks like it's up on the day, regaining some lost ground from yesterday. 170 points right now. NASDAQ up 157. And our KSL weather. After a little dip in temperatures, we'll be back into the 50s for the rest of the week. That's next. KSL News Time, 11:01.
News doesn't just mean information or dates.
It's the story of our local history being told in real time.
Be a part of the story. This is Tim Hughes and Amanda Dixon.
We hope to be a part of your story. We have you covered on KSL News Radio.
American energy is under attack. Joe Biden has waged a war on American natural resources and made it harder to produce affordable, reliable, and clean energy right here in Utah. Our energy prices are already going up. Biden's policies will make it worse. But Republican John Curtis has our back. There is no greater supporter of unleashing American energy than John Curtis. John Curtis knows our abundant natural resources help keep us free and safe, powers our economy, keeps the lights on, and keeps Utah on the move. John Curtis is Utah tough. He's taken the fight to Joe Biden and the Washington politicians who all want to hurt American energy. And now we need a conservative to take the fight to the United States Senate. We need Republican John Curtis, a strong defender of American energy dominance in the fight for us.
Paid for by Clear Path Action Fund. Not authorized by any candidate or candidate committee.
Looking for a secure retirement plan without market risk? Look no further. Lyle Boss, president of Boss Financial, specializes in no market risk retirement strategies with guarantees of principal, guaranteed growth, and lifelong income. Join Lyle right here each Saturday and Sunday for his Safe Money radio show, and call him now at 855-355-SAFE for your complimentary customized Safe Money information kit and Safe Money book. Nothing but upside here at 855-355-SAFE.
Hi, I'm Henry Winkler. My eyes are very important to me. My eyes connect me with everything I love. I loved my late father-in-law dearly. He always lit up a room, but his vision dimmed with age. He had age-related macular degeneration, or AMD. And since partnering with Apellis, I've learned there's an advanced form of dry AMD called geographic atrophy, or GA. His struggle with vision loss made me want to help others know about GA's warning signs. For some, colors appear dull or washed out. For others, hazy or blurred vision make it hard to see details, like fine print on price tags. Many have trouble seeing in the dark, making driving at night difficult. GA gets worse over time and cannot be reversed. If you think you have GA, don't wait. Treatments are available. Ask a retina specialist about FDA-approved treatments for GA and go to GAWon'tWait.com.
Traffic and weather together, brought to you by Sinclair's DinoPay app. Save up to 20 cents per gallon. Here's Ricky Meese.
The little bit of traffic, trouble in traffic that we had northbound I-15 in Murray, right around the south interchange with vehicles to the left and right, have been cleared. We are back to a smooth drive on all the Valley freeways. Attention Wasatch Front businesses and property managers. Have winter conditions damaged your parking lot asphalt or concrete surfaces? Call GoPave Utah to get on their schedule. GoPave Utah. GoPaveUtah.com. Ricky Meese in the KSL Traffic Center.
And our KSL weather, a high in the 50s today, but it drops back to the 40s tomorrow and Friday. Chance of rain tomorrow, then things dry out for the weekend. Right now, 52 degrees, mostly cloudy in Salt Lake. I'm Dan Bomas from the KSL Common Spirit Health Studios. Listen online at kslnewsradio.com. We're Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
Dave and Dujanovic, your morning companions for talk, analysis, and key perspectives on Utah's biggest stories. On KSL News Radio, Dave and Dujanovic have inside sources.
Republican Nikki Haley is out. She made that announcement right about 8 o'clock our time this morning. We carried it live right here on KSL News Radio.
In this campaign, I have seen our country's greatness. From the bottom of my heart, thank you, America. God bless you.
Spent a year, a little over a year, battling it out, traveling the country, speaking to 1 million people, probably living on caffeine and hugs for the better part of a year. And in 3 minutes and 45 seconds, it was all over.
Yeah.
Boyd Matheson joins us right now. How quickly things can end.
Yep, that is how the ends happen. And again, it is a long, windy road, a long journey, and a lot of people didn't give her any chance when she began. You remember back a little over a year ago, she was the first to announce that she would take on former President Donald Trump, and a lot of people said, don't see a lot of there. But she laid out a campaign and outlasted more other candidates than we can count. Who came in and went out, many with a lot of money and a lot of name ID going in, Ron DeSantis, Mike Pence, on down the list. And she outlasted all of them, was the last one standing. But I think the thing that drove her all the way to the very end, and she said it when we sat down with her here in the state, what makes it all worth it? And she said, if I can change the conversation at all in the country, if I can influence how we have some of these conversations, all of it, including over 365 days on the road, doing a lot of those grip and grins and meet and greets and all of those challenging things, tough interviews, personal attacks on your family, all of that, it's worth it. And a lot of times we complain about messy process. A lot of times we complain about this is hard or this is inconvenient. Those are all very first world, very American problems that we all should be grateful for. And we should be grateful for people like Nikki Haley who step up and do that.
Are you referencing the problems that Harriman and Alta High and Bingham High and a number of other people that we've heard from?
Beyond that, yeah. And again, problems and things like that are not excusable because they're fixable. But when you're running volunteer organizations, anyone who's run a volunteer organization know things get crazy, and that's okay. So, but even with that, even the worst case in some of those caucuses last night, spending maybe 2 hours on one night in a 4-year period for a chance to raise your voice and more important, to meet with your neighbors and talk with your neighbors about issues that matter. I don't think that's such a big price to pay.
Well, and that's actually we've heard from a lot of people today who weren't quite sure, what happened with their vote. So there's some big issues that this news organization needs to address and needs to be asking. We'll ask that of the chair of the Republican Party when he calls the show just after you, Boyd. But I want to get back to this Nikki Haley dropping out of the race. So that leaves Donald Trump and Joe Biden. Here we are. Same script, new year. It's the sequel. There's so many layers to this, but let's just start there. I mean, are we ready for a repeat?
Yeah, same song,
as
different
a country?
Yeah, I don't know that the country's quite ready. There will be a mini exhale. It didn't last very long. If you listen to the former president last night, he was a little subdued, but I think that was because he played 2 rounds of golf yesterday. But it was the same song, and it was very much grievance politics. America's a joke on the world stage. It was that same list of grievances. And for President Biden's part, he didn't speak last night, but issued a statement, and it was, fated the free world and the future of democracy is on the ballot. in November. So those are going to be the themes. And I think you'll see it play out that way. Donald Trump will do that in big rallies, big events with a lot of passion and emotion. And I don't think we'll see a lot of President Biden in those kinds of settings. I think you'll see a lot of statements that go out in terms of why this is so important. And so it'll be interesting to watch. We're also, of course, keeping our eye on the State of the Union address for the president tomorrow, because that is his kickoff point, is the State of the Union. I hope he keeps it a State of the Union, not a state of the politics. It's not supposed to be a political speech. That will be the first test for the president.
That would be a miracle, though, Boyd, if he did that.
Yeah, that's one of the things I probably dread the most is the hand-wringing and doomsday that I'm going to hear over the next 8 months. Because that's really so much where they're comfortable, instead of really painting the picture of the vision. And I think as Nikki Haley dropped out, when she was speaking in a very concise way, she listed 2 or 3 things that really concerned her. She talked about term limits. She talked about the national debt. She talked about supporting Ukraine and what that means. And again, this was a 3-minute and 45-second, and she hit more substance than what we get usually in an hour-long rambling press conference.
No question. And I have always said that some of the greatest speeches of all time are concession speeches. In fact, we're going to go through that today on the show. We're going to go through Mitt Romney's concession speech, probably one of the best speeches he ever gave. Hillary Clinton's concession speech, definitely the best speech she ever gave. Because it's kind of raw. It's very real. You're coming to an end, but you get to the essence of what matters. And so there's a lot to be learned from those concession speeches. I thought Nikki Haley did a brilliant job today. As you said, Dave, she got to very focused. These are the 3 or 4 things that matter, and here's why it matters, and this is why I still care about this country, and you should too.
Let's listen to one of those moments during this morning's speech.
It is now up to Donald Trump to earn the votes of those in our party and beyond it who did not support him. And I hope he does that. At its best, politics is about bringing people into your cause, not turning them away. And our conservative cause badly needs more people. This is now his time for choosing.
Great lines right there. As she was saying that, I was actually on News Nation this morning listening to this live and doing some analysis. And the thing that struck me as she laid that out in terms of addition, I think for the Republican Party, they should stop worrying about burning heretics, and they should start looking for converts. They should sharpen a lot more pencils than knives and have a very different conversation, because we've said it together. We've talked about this, the 3 of us. It is one thing to win a primary in the spring, but it does not matter a hill of beans if you cannot win on the first Tuesday of November. And for both President Biden and former President Trump, that will be the test. And neither one of them can get there by subtraction. They can only get there by addition.
That's a great line, Boyd. That's a great line. Oh, it is. I love that. You just put it in perspective.
Yeah.
They can't sideline and toss voters aside.
Yeah.
Every vote will count, and they got to bring them into the party.
Yeah, and both sides have some real concerns. I mean, in Minnesota last night, 20% of the Democratic votes were cast as uncommitted. So those are Democrats who were willing to show up on a cold night in Minnesota and cast a vote. And they voted not for President Biden. So where do they go? Now, I don't think for a minute they're going to former President Trump. But if they stay home, that matters. 100,000 of those in Michigan, a swing state. Again, they're not going to the Republican side. But if they stay home, that could turn a swing state in a big way. And so both sides of the aisle have got to do this by addition, not subtraction. And that requires a different kind of conversation. And I'm not sure either one of them can lead that.
What was the single best thing that Nikki Haley brought? What did she bring attention to that you say, you know what, that was why she came in?
I think she was trying to shift the conversation back from the performative politics to substance, and I think probably the most important thing, to relationship, because that's what's really lacking. Everything's a transaction. In fact, we even saw that today. Mitch McConnell comes out today and endorses Donald Trump. Those two detest each other. They haven't spoken to each other. They've battled each other. But for political expediency, everything's a transaction. And you can't unite the nation in transactions. Mm-hmm. It's part of the reason why I think caucuses are important because it's not just a transaction of casting a vote, it's connection. And what this country needs more than anything is connection. We had an author on the show yesterday talking about this very thing, that if we're going to get back to things like advocacy and dialogue, you have to know the person. And you don't do that through transactions. And our politics has become so transactional. And Donald Trump really led a lot of that. And Mitch McConnell led a lot of that transactional politics, as opposed to some of the relationship stuff we've had in the past across the political spectrum. And I think Nikki Haley was really trying to do that, to be smart, to be principled, and to be policy-centric. I think that was the core of her campaign.
Boyd, thank you. This segment of the David Dujanovic Show is brought to you by Window World. Replace your windows and doors without the hassle or baloney. Call Window World of Utah today.
Next, we'll speak to the chair of the Utah Republican Party. He was on live this morning with Tim Hughes in Utah's Morning News, and here's what he said about the problems that happened across several caucus meetings last night that were held in person, and Republican voters were complaining about Wi-Fi problems, computer website crashes. One woman called us just a few moments ago and said that she actually found that her ballot, when she turned it into a volunteer, it got stuck in the volunteer's purse. So we've got lots of questions to ask him. But here's what he said about the issues this morning on Utah's Morning News. My question is he going to change his tune after the better part of 2.5 hours of our show, where we've listened to a whole host of complaints?
We had excellent turnout. A lot of people all across the state wanted to lean in and participate in the process, which was fantastic. We had a couple of glitches here and there that we had to navigate, and some venues had higher than expected turnout. All of that combined for a few curveballs here and there. And, some things went very well, and some others we missed the mark.
Dave and Dujanovic.
A lot of us are filling our workdays with podcasts.
When you're working, go to KSLNewsRadio.com.
Click on Dave and Debbie's podcast and pick a topic and story length.
Podcast with Dave and Debbie. Then get to work with KSL News Radio.
You wouldn't know it, but most financial advisors are put in a box. I'm Jeff Jr. from Trajan Wealth, and I want to provide you a little insight about financial advisors. Most financial advisors have to sell what their company requires them to sell, and many advisors have to only adhere to what's called a suitability standard. A suitability standard is a limited standard of care, not requiring what's sold to be best just suitable. Advisors with this loose standard often have limited investment and product selection. Trajan Wealth is held to a fiduciary standard, which is the highest standard of care in the advisory business. And that's just one of the many reasons we have billions of dollars under our care and attract clients from other advisors. Raise your standards today and call Trajan Wealth. Call 801-899-7600. That's 801-899-7600.
Advisory services offered through Trajan Wealth, LLC, an SEC-registered investment advisor.
The Cougars are fighting for their best chance in the Big Dance.
BYU's displayed its resiliency throughout this campaign.
Wow. The Big 12 tournament is days away, and then it's the NCAA tournament. Tonight, it's BYU, Iowa State. Pregame is at 6 and tip-off at 7 on Utah's legacy home for the Cougars. KSL News Radio.
With 317,000 Utahns and 1 in 10 Utah kids facing hunger, Utah Food Bank needs your help to fight hunger statewide. In partnership with Macy's Grocery and Lynn's, fill a bag with non-perishable food donations and put it at your doorstep by 9 a.m. on Saturday, March 16th to support the Feed Utah Food Drive. Donations will be picked up by volunteers and can be the difference between hunger and hope for Utahns struggling to make ends meet and feed their families. Learn more about this statewide effort at utahfoodbank.org/feedutah.
I'm Jason Walton, candidate for U.S. Senate. I'm recording from the Tucson sector of our southern border, and nobody's here. Our government should defend our territory. But President Biden, Mitch McConnell, and career politicians are funding war in other countries while the cartels are waging unchecked war here on American soil. I'm standing up to build the wall, end catch and release, and secure the border. Stand with me.
I'm Jason Walton, and I approve this message.
Paid for by friends of Jason Walton for Senate.
Want more speed? Well, you're in luck because Xfinity just increased their internet speeds and they're faster than ever. Plus, with super fast internet and a reliable connection, you can do more of what you love whenever you want. More gaming, more downloading, more video chatting, and more cozy nights on the couch streaming your favorite movies and TV shows. If life with more speed sounds pretty awesome, that's because it is. It's time to get more out of your internet with faster speeds from Xfinity. Get 300 megabit Xfinity internet for only $25 a month for 12 months with no annual contract and Wi-Fi equipment included. That's 50% more speed for the same great price. Go to Xfinity.com, call 1-800-XFINITY, or visit a store today. Requires paperless billing and auto pay with stored bank account. Restrictions apply. Taxes and other charges extra. After promo, regular rates apply. Actual speeds vary and not guaranteed. Want more speed? Go to Xfinity.com, call or visit a store today.
Hey, Joe Montana here. Back in my football days, I knew the importance of a strong defense. Now I'm sharing how you can help defend your health against pneumococcal pneumonia, a bacterial lung disease that can be life-threatening. If you're 65 or older, or 19 or older with certain chronic conditions like diabetes or asthma, you're at increased risk. Talk to your doctor or pharmacist about vaccination and learn more at knowpneumonia.com. That's KNOW pneumonia.com.
Sponsored by Pfizer.
Without the ones like you, who work tirelessly to keep things running, everything would suddenly stop. Hospitals, factories, schools, and power plants, they all depend on you. No matter the weather, emergency, or time of day, you're the ones who get it done. At Grainger, we're here for you with professional-grade industrial supplies. Count on real-time product availability and fast delivery. Call, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
Getting help with electrical repairs is easier than you think. All you have to do is call Any Hour Services or schedule an appointment at anyhourservices.com. No one helps more homeowners than Any Hour Services.
Dave and Dujanovic. Dave and Dujanovic.
As the morning has gone on, we have been hearing from a lot of listeners who were trying to vote last night at their in-person Republican caucus. They did what they thought they were supposed to do. They followed the rules of the GOP here in Utah to vote in person, and they had Wi-Fi issues. They couldn't pre-register. Some of them weren't quite sure if their votes even got tallied. We heard from one woman down in the Utah County area who said when she turned her ballot in, her piece of paper in with the presidential preference poll with Nikki Haley's name on it, the volunteer took it and shoved it in her own purse.
Yeah, the purse. I dropped mine off in a Tupperware. Caitlin used a bag. Caitlin's our producer. And then LeVar Webb, who we just spoke to, he got to text his in because of a little mix-up, cross-up, foul-up, whatever it might be. But so we got the Tupperware, the bag, the purse, and the text. So to say it was an eclectic experience is an understatement.
And on top of that, we heard from Taylor Morgan earlier in the show, who's a KSL at Night host, that turnout wasn't that great. At least not yet from the numbers that he's seen and he's looked at. He thought he put it somewhere around 10%. Robert Axon, chair of the GOP, thanks for joining us.
Yeah, happy to join you.
Let's start with the chaos and the reports of chaos that we got, and particularly want you to focus on how you know for sure that Republicans' votes were counted last night, because we have had numerous complaints here and concerns that, one vote went into somebody's purse, others went into plastic containers. One woman emailed us here at Broadcast House and said the volunteers at her location said they weren't even sure the votes were going to get tallied.
Yeah, so, great questions. First, I think it's important to have the context of, 2,400 precinct locations around the state of Utah and hundreds of physical locations. And the vast majority of those went very well, were well attended, and ran smoothly. And so I'm very grateful to any Republican who showed up and wanted to participate. Certainly the same is true for all of the many volunteers that made that happen. There were some precinct meetings and some along the Wasatch Front especially that ran into challenges. And to the folks that navigated those challenges, both as a participant or a volunteer, I appreciate it. I'm grateful for them, especially with the frustration of having something that is delayed or whatnot. But very grateful for the very strong turnout. As for the question that you have of the votes being tallied, I would point out that the critical part to our whole process is that those votes were all counted in the precinct meetings. So if you put your vote in a box at the front of the room or it was put into a bag, it was done in front of all of your fellow precinct members. Had you stuck around, and any Republican who stuck around to the end of the meeting, there was a point at which all of the precinct ballots were counted. So it's a transparent process that was done in front of anybody that wanted to stick around for that, and most people did. So each of these precincts where you had folks casting votes, and those votes being counted, there were often, potentially a couple dozen, few dozen people that were watching that tally happen.
I know in my experience when I went, it was messy. There's a lot of grace given, I think, because these are our neighbors. They are volunteers. They are not professionals. But if the county clerk ran their voting like we just experienced yesterday, they'd all be fired. And I think that kind of speaks to how much, again, grace was given when I think we have a wheel that we've developed, and it felt like we tried to reinvent the wheel.
Yeah, no, I completely hear what you're saying. What I would point out and stress is there's different systems between a caucus system and a primary system, right? Like you said, the clerks, they do this. They do it professionally. They are paid staff. They have resources from tax dollars that go into the multi-millions of dollars. What happens, though, is you have another element of the caucus system, that there's this trade-off. So the pros and cons of each, you get the pros when you lean into one, but you miss out on other elements of the democratic process. And so one of those elements that you receive in a caucus approach is folks coming together and engaging, even if at times it feels a little bit messy, because all aspects of civic engagement and really good citizenry requires more than just casting a vote. And that's important. But again, this ability to come together in a neighborhood also has its benefits here in the state of Utah. We certainly leaned into those. And in that trade-off, we'll have to look at, the cost-benefit analysis. Was it still worthwhile? And I think there was a lot of wins that happened last night, and certainly many lessons that we'll have to learn from.
Well, you had Wi-Fi troubles. You had a website, the Utah GOP website, that appeared to crash or not be accessible by numerous people. And from our analysis here, so far, you've had about 10% turnout. So not a lot of neighbors did come together. Now, at Bingham High, where there was a crowd, at Copper Hills, at Harriman, at Alta High, at Brighton High School, all reporting problems. These are some major areas that have reported problems. And I still get back to the fact that we still have a woman who voted last night, or who was at her in-person caucus, and she said the volunteer took her ballot, if you will, for lack of a piece of paper, and stuck it in her personal purse. How can you justify that?
I can't speak to a specific circumstance. The very first thing that I'm hearing of that was a moment ago when you brought that up. So certainly that's something that we could look into.
Will you be looking at complaints from Republican voters who feel like their vote might not have been counted, or that there were some discrepancies on how the process worked at their individual caucus meeting?
There's certainly lessons to be learned on a couple of those highly attended sites that ran into the technical issues, and those are legitimate frustrations, and I can appreciate people having those, and certainly want to look into that. I am very confident in the tabulation process and the counting process and the effort that was put into that, not just hey, we put in the effort, so give us a break. But no, it was also the execution of it and the multiple means for people to check on that, including that transparent in-caucus counting of the local precinct ballots, but all the way up into how we tabulated those statewide, and the poll watching and observation from both the Nikki Haley campaign and the Donald Trump campaign. They had a high degree of confidence of what was being done. They got to see all of the aspects of that, and so the delays in some areas, legitimate. We've got to figure that out, and we have to learn from that. The counting of the votes, very confident in how that was done, and that it was a fair process.
Could you even do an audit if you had to?
Yeah, so we actually have down to the precinct level what those votes are. And again, if you were in your precinct, you got to, and you stuck around to the end, you saw what the count was. You would be able to check that against what we have. We have not only the physical ballots are retained on the county level, but we have photos of the tabulation sheet that were taken, as well as those tabulation sheets themselves that were signed by the people in each precinct counting those. So there were multiple redundancies for us to double check. And, there was one or two times where the data wasn't matching up, and you look at it and it's like, okay, they entered the information on the wrong line in a spreadsheet, but we had the photos, we had the physical form, we were able to check that. And so that redundancy was able to give the high degree of confidence to the various campaigns, and also created a system where I, again, can say that I am confident that the process worked in spite of the delays and the challenges on some of the pre-registration that occurred in some sites.
So Robert, to make sure that Republican voters who participated or tried to participate in their in-person caucus meetings have that same level of confidence that you're sharing with us right now, would you allow for an independent audit of last night's processes and the tally? An independent audit.
So anybody can look at the results. They're up at utgop.org. Those results will continue to get more down to the granular level. I think the transparency is there and available for anybody that wants to look at it. We certainly find that to be sufficient. In the postmortem of how we look at this, we'll figure out what worked, what didn't work. And we'll move on. But I'm grateful that we had over 100,000 Utahns that showed up and participated with us. That's no small number. And that's something that now leans into that delegate and candidate process, because we now have 4,000 state delegates alone, let alone the county delegates, who will be engaging with all of our various Republican candidates. That's an exciting time of the season. I think it's an important one that this system allows that a primary would not.
Would you do it again?
That's a question for the state Republican Party to decide 4 years from now. Under state law, they decide whether or not to do a primary or a caucus as a function of the presidential nomination. They'll be able to make that decision with what we had at our hands and in front of us 8 months ago, when we made this decision. We made the right decision. And certainly, again, lessons need to be learned. You always need to be improving the process. But I think the messiness, quote unquote, of what happened last night is also a sign of a very strong democratic process, and one that I'm proud of.
Robert Axson, thank you for joining us, Utah chair of the GOP.
It's 11:32 at KSL News Radio. I'm Dan Bomas. Our top story this hour, we're expecting at any moment to join a news conference being held by the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints to talk about its historical properties acquisitions that were announced yesterday in an agreement with the Community of Christ, and we'll join that as soon as that becomes available. Our top story this hour, more than $14 million in federal funds will be going to the Navajo and Hopi reservations to install clean energy there. Right now, Chelsea Chi from Native Renewables says many families don't have access to a regular power grid.
They might have a generator, or they might have to charge their communication devices with their vehicles, inside their vehicles, if they have one.
The money will be used to provide 300 homes with access to solar energy. This is part of the Biden administration's larger infrastructure initiative, which just awarded $72 million to tribes across the country. Our top national story this hour, Donald Trump looks like he will be the Republican nominee for president.
want to bring Boyd Matheson into the conversation for some breaking news regarding the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. Boyd, just bring our listeners up to speed on what's happening right now.
Those who were tuned in yesterday, the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, of course, headquartered here in Salt Lake City, Utah, made a historic announcement yesterday in an acquisition of the Kirtland Temple in Ohio, a very important historic site to the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, as well as key properties in Nauvoo, as well as other artifacts, historic documents that they obtained from the Community of Christ, which is formerly known as the Reorganized Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. And they have been shepherding and stewarding those locations and those historic sites for years and years and years. There's been a great relationship between the two organizations. And as both organizations continue to move forward, it made sense that the stewardship of these be transferred. So there was a purchase made so that the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints is now responsible for all of those. They're doing things that they will continue to have those open for public tours. There will continue to be historic sites, but really important history components to it. So to me, this is really about meaning. This is about sacred spaces and creating areas where members of the Church of Jesus Christ can actually return and be part of that cultural history.
We want to go live now to a news conference Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints is holding.
Preserve this building going forward.
Thank you, Emily. All right, Tad, I saw you raised your hand.
Yeah, so one question I had from some people reacting to the news was whether there were documents in this tranche that hadn't been in the Joseph Smith Papers project yet. Or is there anything that will be additive in that way, or are these all things that have been published before? And just generally, what do you feel about obtaining these documents?
That's a question.
Had a strong relationship over the years. Many of the documents that were transferred yesterday are included in the Joseph Smith Papers, the Joseph and Emma correspondence, the Joseph Smith translation, materials and Bible, the John Whitmer history. So there's no materials that were transferred yesterday that were not in the Joseph Smith Papers that should have been in the Joseph Smith Papers. We've had that relationship with Community of Christ, and they're all already there. And so nothing will change in terms of that.
I've been handed a list of people who are participating in this news conference. Elder Kyle McKay, who's a church historian and the recorder, Matt Groh, managing director of the Church History Department, and Emily Ott. Thank you, Boyd. Historic Sites Curator. And they're taking questions right now from the media regarding yesterday's announcement. Let's listen back in for just another moment or so.
The feelings are much the same as the transfer of the buildings. That these are for us sacred records, and we feel that responsibility and excitement.
If I could add to that, many of these documents are kept in obedience to a scriptural commandment that there shall be a record kept among you. And the John Whitmer history of the church, for example, when he's called in the 47th section of the Doctrine and Covenants, he's not sure about his abilities, and yet he keeps this record that now comes into our possession. And so it's a valuable, it's a personal value to me because he's one of my predecessors. And when you think of the Joseph Smith translation of the Bible, for example, these become scripture to us, and so they are of great significance to us. And then the personal nature of the correspondence between Joseph and Emma reveal a very real and human drama and love. So they're all valuable in their own way.
And then what's next for the documents? Are they on their way to the church? Will they be at the library? What's happening with them physically?
So physically, the documents will be stored here at the Church History Library. Some of the artifacts will be stored at the Church History Museum. The portraits of Joseph and Emma Smith. The Liberty Jail door will come to the Church History Museum, at least initially. We believe that we'll have an opportunity to have a small museum exhibit in the coming weeks, which we'll be able to display many of these foundational documents, as well as the portraits and the Liberty Jail door. Some of the other artifacts, many of the other artifacts, will remain in either Kirtland or Nauvoo, where they have traditionally been to help interpret those sites in those cities. So, for example, there's a sunstone and 2 moonstones and a cornerstone of the Nauvoo house that was part of the transaction. Those will remain in Nauvoo. At least that's the present intention.
Sounds good. Jasmine, you had your hand raised next, and then we'll go to Peggy after you.
How long has this process and this transaction been happening? And if I could ask, to what extent has the change of leadership at the Community of Christ been influential in the timing of how this transaction and process went through?
Thank you. Community of Christ puts a date of June of 2021 on the beginning of this process. And then I can't answer the second question. You would need to speak to them, but they have their reasons, and we're just grateful that it ended up the way it did.
Jasmine, any follow-ups?
No, that's good. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, Peggy, you're up.
Okay, I have a bunch of questions. Will the sites be staffed by historians, or at least focus on history and not on proselytizing? Will they be staffed by missionaries or by professional historians?
So as you may know, Peggy, a few years ago, about 5 years ago, the governance of all of the church history sites within the church organization passed from the missionary department to the church history department. And that was part of an intention to focus more on the history at all of the sites. We still use missionaries, both senior missionaries and young sister missionaries, at all of the sites where, of course, those operations are supervised by professional historians and curators and others. And the intention with these new sites was that they would maintain that staffing model of young sisters.
Boyd Matheson in studio with us as we're listening to that news conference at the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. This article right now up on our KSL News Radio website, the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints acquires buildings, manuscripts, Kirtland Temple from Community of Christ. Boyd, walk us through the context. I've been very transparent on the show. I'm a member of the Catholic Church. I'm not a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. So I really want to understand the value and importance of this transaction.
Yeah. So I think the first thing to keep in mind in all of this, and as a Catholic, you can appreciate this.
Absolutely.
This is about sacred space. So this is much more than this is about money. This is about meaning. I think it's a sacred space. This is a lot of the early history of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, early gathering spot in Ohio, first temple built by the church there, the Kirtland Temple, where many very important historic things happened in the early days of the church. And then, of course, they had persecution, and they left that area and continued to move west, then to Nauvoo, some other buildings we'll talk about there. So they left it behind. They left that temple behind, and some of those who chose to stay, and there were offshoots and branches, the reorganized Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, which then had changed their name over the course of years to the Community of Christ, which is how they've been known for quite a few years now, were in possession of that and stewardship of that. And I think it's important to note that the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints and the Community of Christ have worked in tandem on a host of projects to preserve and restore history. They also have a history of transactions. Back in 2012, the site known as Hans Mill was transferred from the Community of Christ in an acquisition purchase from the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. And so all of these things are just little pieces of history that I think matter. And to me, it shows just how important those little pieces of history are to the puzzle of the future, and putting all of those things together. And so I think as you look at those particular spaces, again, Kirtland is one I think is pretty iconic to members of the Church of Jesus Christ. And then as you get to the Nauvoo, you have the Joseph Smith family home, the red brick store. Again, a lot of very historic places. And then they noted in the context of that press conference, the letters between Joseph Smith and Emma Smith. We know letters like that are very telling in terms of the dynamics of a relationship between a husband and a wife doing big things, historic things, things that are challenging and difficult. And so, again, those are all just little beautiful pieces of memory and remembrance that I think are important both in looking back but also in looking forward for the Church of Jesus Christ.
Now, Kirtland, Ohio, for folks that haven't visited, I would say probably next to Cleveland, a little bit east of Cleveland near Lake Erie.
Finger Lakes District up that way, yeah.
So was there an announcement of what the plans are for the Kirtland Temple? Are they going to run it as a historical site, or could this possibly be converted into a working temple?
According to the announcement yesterday, the church has said they will keep it as a historic site. So visitors, members, and non-members alike, free of charge, can all go and continue to go through it. There'll be tours. I think they'll probably do some restoration work, renovation work. Obviously, they'll have, as they typically have in all the historic sites, they'll have volunteer missionaries there giving those tours. So currently, those have been done by members of the community of Christ and telling their part of that history and story. And so now it will be most likely senior missionaries and some young missionaries, I would assume, from the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, telling those stories and that important history and season for the church in Kirtland.
Boyd, I don't want to break any news in your own story here that you're telling so brilliantly, but I'm reading the KSLNewsRadio.com article, and it says that buildings included in the purchase closed to the public on Tuesday, and the church said it would reopen the buildings on March 25th to offer free public church tours. So it's just a slight break here, just a couple of weeks, and then it'll be reopened.
Yeah, that's right. And then so part of that will just be that transition, putting it forward, having people trained to actually give those tours as they do. So it'll just be a very brief window.
You want to know so much about what, the history there. So you got to have people who are ready to go, and I'm sure there are people already very knowledgeable in that area.
I'm sure they're working on that right now.
Yeah, that's awesome, Boyd. Well, thank you so much for giving us that lesson and the important reasons why this acquisition was so important to the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, and you'll have much more on your show today.
We will. We'll actually have a sit down with the church historian, Elder McKay, and as well as a few of the others that will join us to do a little deeper dive into some of those things, why they matter, and what they mean moving forward.
Thank you, Boyd.
Dave and Dujanovic.
You know KSL is the only news radio for your car, right?
The only news radio for your smart speaker.
Come here in the morning. It's the latest news and traffic. In the afternoon, news and updated weather.
We have you covered at KSL News Radio.
Have you ever been burned by bids? The folks that come out, they give you a really sweetheart deal of a bid, and they're like, oh, I can do this in just a few hours, and then you actually get the invoice, and it took a little longer than they expected, and it's not the number you thought you'd agreed on.
I've always felt like you're at a huge disadvantage with the hourly bids, and that's why I love Master Electrical and their upfront pricing. You won't see an upcharge. They're going to come to your home. They're going to give you a bid, and then they're going to give you their upfront pricing guarantee, and that is the amount you're going to pay when the job is done.
801-543-2222 is the best way to get a hold of them. 801-543-2222. They serve everyone from Logan to Santaquin.
And Master Electrical is always open, including for emergency services. So you can also check them out online at masterelectrical.com.
Would you like to be part of an important research study and receive up to $550? The Beehive study at the University of Utah is comparing how well 2 different FDA-authorized booster vaccines protect people against COVID-19. You can decide to get a booster or not and still participate. By joining the Beehive study, you'll have the chance to receive up to $550 for completing activities such as weekly COVID tests and brief surveys about your health. Call 801-203-0320 or email beehivestudy@utah.edu to learn more. You can also visit the study website at www.beehivestudy.com.
Good morning. I'm the 40% off window company.
40% off? Of what?
Hey, 40% off!
Yeah, I'll bet it's your biggest sale of the year. This week only, because you need a model home in our neighborhood. Well, nothing. It's baloney. Hi, this is Kathy.
And Doug of Window World. When you hear those things, you know you've entered the baloney zone.
Resist the force of the baloney zone.
Find Window World online at windowworldutah.com.
Or call Window World at 281-8111. That's 281-8111.
And that's no baloney.
Only one type of burger. For every pallet. Fries are extra. Large in size. We've got the shakes. Going over the brim.
Hey, this is Chris from JCW's. Put a positive, delicious spin on your day at any one of our 5 locations. In Lehigh, American Fork, Provo, South Jordan, or Harriman. JCW's, quality and a lot of it.
Going to a Jazz game is more fun together. Host an unforgettable night at Delta Center with colleagues, friends, families, whoever. Group tickets are the best way to get everyone together to cheer on the Jazz. Pick from a variety of options for seating, dining, and game day experiences. Start planning your big night at the game by calling 801-355-DUNK, emailing group sales at utahjazz.com, or simply visiting utahjazz.com/tickets.
A fiduciary has the regulatory obligation to put your best interest first. Trajan Wealth is a financial fiduciary for your investments. With Trajan Wealth, the more you make, the more we make. Our interests are aligned. Most other financial advisors are brokers held to a lesser standard and are paid an upfront commission to sell you something. Call Trajan Wealth
801-899-7600. That's 801-899-7600.
Advisory services offered through Trajan Wealth LLC, an SEC registered investment advisor.
This is Derek Miller speaking on business. Backyard Bookkeeper is a woman-owned, client-oriented bookkeeping service that prides itself on quality and consistency. Since 2008, they have offered a variety of personalized accounting services to align with your needs. Co-founder and COO Julie DeLong joins us with more.
We are not your average bookkeepers. As a small, bootstrapped business, we understand your growing pains and are here to help your business however we can. When we hire our bookkeepers, we look for people who love bookkeeping for its own sake, and we test their skills to ensure they can do the job well. Our commitment to transparency, honesty, and consistency sets us apart from other bookkeepers. Do you need help with payroll services? Our specialists will take care of you individually, set up your tax accounts, track your federal and state liabilities, and ensure your team gets paid and your taxes get filed accurately. At Backyard Bookkeeper, we understand that sometimes you just need extra help. That's why we can help you set up your own bookkeeping, fix whatever accounting problems you are facing now, provide training and customization, or simply take some of the work off your hands so you can focus on what you do best. We love this stuff. Let us take care of it for you.
Whether your business is a small startup, a nonprofit organization, or an established corporation, Backyard Bookkeeper is here to help. Learn more at their website. I'm Derek Miller with the Salt Lake Chamber, speaking on business.
Brought to you by Dominion Energy's ThermWise program, where they put their energy into helping you conserve it. Start saving energy and money today at thermwise.com.
With the 3 things you need to know this hour, I'm Dan Bonas. First, the risk of wildfires. One reason Park City will be doing a drone show instead of its traditional fireworks this 4th of July. Second, Nikki Haley's supporters say former President Trump cannot take their votes for granted, even though she has dropped out of the race. And third, war and high interest rates are pushing up the price of gold. 52 degrees, partly cloudy in Salt Lake City. Back to Dave and Dujanovic on KSL News Radio.
Dave and Dujanovic.
Just a few minutes ago, we spoke live to the chair of the Utah Republican Party because we have gotten so many complaints. We've talked to listeners today who have complaints about their in-person caucus meeting that the GOP required of Republican voters this year, and there were lots of problems. So many problems. We spent most of the show talking about the issues in neighborhoods, in the communities, in high schools, where folks were gathering. And Robert Axsom, the chair of the party, wouldn't commit. He wouldn't commit to an audit, an external, an independent audit of the tally and the results and how the process worked or didn't work for some people. And to Dave's question, when he asked, would it be done this way again, here was Axon's response.
That's a question for the state Republican Party to decide 4 years from now. Under state law, they decide whether or not to do a primary or a caucus as a function of the presidential nomination. They'll be able to make that decision with what we had at our hands and in front of us 6 months ago, 8 months ago, when we made this decision. We made the right decision.
And as we spoke with the lieutenant governor earlier today, Deidre Henderson, who is over voting, that's part of the lieutenant governor's job, is to be over voting, she was very clear. She said, this is caucus. This is different from the voting process with the county clerk is being involved. She's like, they were not the same things. So to hold one to the same standard as the other is unfair, because the caucus is being run largely with volunteers and untrained professionals.
Now, as we were sorting through the many complaints that we got here via email from Republicans who were trying to vote at the caucus, show up to pre-register, couldn't pre-register at their caucus, we were able to sort these into different categories. Problems with the way things were tallied, problems with pre-registration, problems with volunteers who didn't really understand what to do in certain scenarios. But I want to make it clear that when we were sorting through these complaints, it did appear that a lot of the issues that we were seeing were coming from areas like Bingham High School, Harriman High, Copper Hills High, Alta High, Brighton High. These are Salt Lake County areas. And where there were there's probably a bigger turnout. Now, not everybody experienced the confusion, the chaos, the getting kicked off websites and not being able to access pre-registration QR codes like was happening in these particular areas. Some people said they had a really good experience. And so we thought it was important to talk about that as well. And Dave, you had problems at your caucus meeting. You've highlighted those, but there was a silver lining in some of this for you.
Yeah, I think it was important to point out this was the first caucus meeting I've been to, and I really enjoyed it. It was a little messy. There were some problems. There were hiccups that need to be addressed. I understand that, but I got to meet with my neighbors, people in my community. I got to know other people that I probably wouldn't have gotten a chance to know otherwise. So there were some benefits. One of the things I really loved is of the 70 people, it was about 70 people that we squeezed into this old history class, or the history class at Davis High School. I looked around. There weren't a lot of young adults. There was about 3 of them. My kid was one of them, but there were some 18-year-olds. And I talked to Rachel Duncan, and I asked her what she thought about the process.
It was kind of interesting. There's some stuff where I was just like, okay, this is kind of weird, but it makes sense. I'm in my old history classroom where I learned about, all the different political processes in the United States. I'm actually getting to see them in action, and I don't know, it was just really cool. But I got to actually check off who I wanted to be the next president of the United States, and I thought that was just really awesome.
And I wanted to know, because I love talking to kids. She's still a senior in high school, and she came out to caucus night, and I wanted to know why.
I was really excited to be able to vote, because it's my only chance to actually let my voice be heard and make a difference. And I probably would put myself more as a moderate as far as the political spectrum, but we live in Utah where it's mostly Republican, and I want to be able to show who I want for president, because this is going to impact my next 4 years of life. And so, yeah.
But to be very clear, there was not even a handful of 18-year-olds in that room. There were 3 out of 70. Most were probably in their 40s or older. So the demographic, it skewed very much to the older Republicans. And I spoke to a man that was voted in as a state delegate. His name's Paul Stout. And he had some concerns about not just the way it was run, not the way the caucus was run and the voting was tallied, but the inherent problem with the caucus system.
The caucus system is a little broken because of that. We go to a caucus, we don't get a chance to voice our opinions in the caucus, as you noticed. We have to vote blindly for a candidate to represent us, not knowing what that candidate is going to vote for when they go to the state or county convention. We have to trust, because they're a neighbor, that they're going to make the right choice. But in reality, they might make the opposite choice as we would have made. There was no chance to voice any opinions, to hear out any of the candidates. We did a little bit about that tonight for the individual candidates, but not for the presidential candidates on the GOP side.
So an experience, it wasn't something I thought, oh, I love this. This is the way to do it. But I did appreciate getting together. I don't think we do that nearly enough. I think we avoid having political conversations with our family, our neighbors, our friends. I don't think that's healthy. I think we need to be able to have these conversations. And this is one way to kind of force us out of our comfort zone and into talking politics.
I feel like our next couple of days, we need to focus on this conversation. What would work? What would work? We've talked all morning long about what didn't work, and there's plenty of complaints to go around. And we've gone over those over and over again through the help with our listeners who called in, who explained their situations, to chair of different caucus meetings who called in and said there were problems. There were no doubt. So what are the solutions for Republicans going forward? Dave and I and our team will be looking into those today.